Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. Marvel, I am the leader of the mutant race. Chapter 21 Lunch Together. $30. This is the highest price ever quoted by the other party after using mind control on Coulson. Yuri curled his lips in disgust. Damn it, the black man of fact is really black, and the dog is a real dog. This is the inventor of the armor, Tony Stark. It's only worth $30. He signaled Ethan to take the cash box and count it face to face with the currency detector. With a blink of his eyes, he used his ability to make the process of bargaining just now in Coulson's memory very natural. Well, Coulson didn't notice anything unusual. He glanced at the cash box on the counter with a slightly regretful look. He couldn't get a penny from this mission except for the bonus. Looking back, he looked at Yuri and asked, "Who is that person?" Yuri chuckled, "Even if I don't tell you, you should know who it is." Coulson smiled slightly and did not answer. If not, not only would he not get a penny, but he might also be deducted for spending money to buy wrong information. Yuri nodded. Tony Stark. As you know, a set of armor needs a lot of energy to put into actual combat. Only his microreactor can meet the energy output required by the armor. Coulson stretched out his hand and said with a smile, "Mr. Yuri, happy to cooperate. Pleasant to work with." Yuri also stretched out his hand, but at the last moment when the two hands were held together, he suddenly retracted his arm and made a thumbs up with his fingers. "Mr. Yuri is so naughty." Coulson gracefully withdrew his fist between the two of them. He nodded to Ethan, who was busy counting the money, and left the Ancestors' handicraft shop without looking back. Through the window, Yuri clearly saw dozens of tall and muscular people with bulging waists pushing out the doors of various shops near the handicraft shop. They got into several cars parked on the roadside and walked towards several different shops. "The direction is far away." "Haha." Yuri turned back to the front desk and randomly took out a wad of banknotes from the ones Ethan had counted. "After counting them, I'd better put them back in the cash box. I'll go buy some things and I'll put them away when I come back." "Good boss." Ethan didn't even raise his head, immersed in the banknotes that smelled strongly of ink and couldn't extricate himself. Yuri shrugged, rolled up a finger-thick green knife, stuffed it into his pocket and opened the store door. Nike, Adidas. He swept through everything from commonly used sportswear and suits to universal men's underwear and C and B-shaped bear covers. He even customized a few sets for special occasions for 5 guys who didn't even have ID cards. Dress. Yuri unloaded the clothes bags hanging on his arms in the handicraft shop, told Ethan not to move, took out a 2-finger-thick wad of bills from the cash box, and left the shop again. Ethan looked at the lush green in the cash box and shook his head. "Although I'm not interested in money, you can't tempt me like that. The windows are full of pedestrians, providing a rich source of customers to the shops facing the street, but there is no doubt, no one will enter a handicraft store that requires a grandchild to enter, not even the delivery boy in Hell's Kitchen. They just leave the food at the door. Fortunately, I don't have to worry about salary." Ethan touched Coulson's shiny forehead, and when he let go, he pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose. He glanced at the time on his watch, 12:50. "You'll be ready to eat in 10 minutes. He went into the bathroom and washed the dishes he had brought with him in advance. When he came out, he found Yuri getting out of the car with the delivery boy from Hell's Kitchen. "Open the door." "Ethan." Yuri and the delivery boy moved out one heavy foam box after another from the trunk and back seat of the car. Ethan opened the store door and asked in confusion while helping him go inside, "Boss, are you stocking up on supplies? There are so many, we can't eat them all even in a week." Yuri took out a knife from his pocket and handed it to the delivery boy as a tip. After watching the person go away, he closed the store door and said to Ethan, "There are some new employees in the store, this is the amount of a meal." Ethan seemed to understand, and had a vague guess, either there were a lot of new employees, or the new employees, like the boss, had an astonishing appetite. A sensible person knows what to ask and what not to ask. He took out his own portion and returned to the counter. This job was no longer so wonderful, and he didn't want to cause any complications. "Shaq, Kate, Vanex. Come down." The security door at the stairway on the second floor opened automatically, and several heavy footsteps quickly went down the stairs to the first floor. Ethan pushed up his glasses. "Good guy, 3 big men with big muscles and thick waists share a windbreaker. The front is covered and the back is exposed. It's eye-catching. It's eye-catching." "Stop." All footsteps stopped abruptly. Yuri distributed the clothes bags piled on the ground to the 5 people, and ordered the men to go back to the second floor and the women to go to the third floor to change before going out to eat. The 3 grown men got the clothes, completely ignored Ethan behind the counter, and ran back to the second floor naked. Yuri smiled awkwardly at Ethan. They may be a little different from ordinary people. Please forgive me if you encounter anything. Ethan swallowed the food in his mouth, glanced at the stairs and nodded, don't worry, boss, I think I'm mentally prepared. Within a few minutes, 5 well-dressed young men and women stood uncomfortably on the first floor. The silly bird Vanax put his hand into his shirt, grabbed the shaping underwear wrapped with 2 food bags with an impatient look on his face and said, Boss, can you not wear these things, and the ones inside the pants, it makes me feel so uncomfortable. The other 4 people nodded in agreement, and then 5 pairs of eyes full of anticipation stared at the mutant leader who kept twitching the corners of his mouth. Endure, adapt, prevail. Yuri slowly spit out 3 ordinary words. He glanced at the 5 people, and finally set his eyes on the stupid bird. Treat them as environmental factors that you have to endure, I believe you. Yes. Ethan, who was drinking water, was startled by the sudden sound. A mouthful of water went half into his stomach and half into his lungs, choking him and coughing non-stop. Boss, who is this human being? The silly bird looked away disdainfully at Ethan, who was coughing and his face turned red. He could become like this even after drinking water. Human beings are really weak. Yuri was distributing lunch boxes to Shaq and others, and he said emphatically, Man! 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 Vanax! You should ask who is this man? Oh! Vanax just asked casually, and her attention quickly shifted to the foam box on the ground that exuded an alluring fragrance. Where's mine? Where's mine? Boss, where's mine? Yuri picked up his 30 portions of steaks and complimentary fruits, pointed to the 2 remaining foam boxes with his chin and said, Those are yours, take them over here, and I'll teach you how to eat. Puff! Ethan, who had just returned to normal, squirted out all the anti-shock water he had just drank in his mouth. He wiped off the water stains on the counter, with shock remaining in his eyes. Teach him how to eat? What kind of teaching? What is the way to eat? Can I take a look? Chapter 22 Tony and Connors. A meal. In total, the 5 Vanaxers broke 24 table knives, punctured lunch boxes, and bent table forks. Ethan stared at the clear fingerprints on the scrapped pure steel tableware in the garbage bag and swallowed hard. Sure enough, these new employees are all ruthless people without exception. After the meal, Yuri taught them step by step how to clean the tableware. This process became much more harmonious. After the previous study, the 5 Vanaxes all learned to control their power within the appropriate range, except for the useless dishwashing liquid. Apart from being a little too much, I finally had no tableware to prevent unexpected deaths. Yuri waited for them to put the remaining tableware back into the foam box, then clapped his hands and asked the 5 people to gather together. Okay, your task this afternoon is to learn and master the Inuit language. This is very important. It is related to the future in the Arctic Circle. Search for clan members. Yes. Ethan blinked. Tribesmen? Could it be that these 6 are not the only ones who can accidentally break a steel spoon? Ethan. 2. Yuri was stunned for a moment, then smiled and patted the shoulder of the only pure human in the handicraft shop and said kindly, You are not a soldier, and I am not a commander, so there is no need to do this to me. What I want to say is, please help me with language learning. As far as I know, you have mastered several foreign languages including English, right? Ethan rubbed his smooth forehead and said with some embarrassment, but Inuit is not within the range of languages I master. It's okay. Yuri pointed at the 5 people who were already whispering with each other on their laptops. He was very confident, they have strong learning abilities. I just need your experience in language learning and your gentlemanly behavior. Ethan raised his eyebrows in confusion. The language learning experience is okay, but the behavior of a gentleman? Is this something that can be learned in a short time? Go ahead and take them to the second floor. I'll come and see the store. All right. Ethan reluctantly glanced at the front desk of the handicraft shop, the holy place for fishing. He had a hunch that these leisurely days might not last a few more days. Bay House. Stark's private luxury mansion. Lower parking garage. With the help of the robotic arm Derpy, Tony rebuilt an experimental platform among many luxury cars. Surprisingly, there was also a man in a white coat with a broken arm who helped. It was Tony who said, "Just hand it over when you're done." Yuri's Dr. Lizard. Dr. Lizard Connors placed a box of mice and bowed to Tony very sincerely. "Mr. Stark. Thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to continue this research." "You're welcome." Holding the ultrafine needle, Tony carefully drew out about 1 milliliter of the lizard potion that was going to be put into the canary device. "We won't have a lot of time together, so hurry up and hope to make us some controllable outcomes." Connors helped fix a white mouse and carefully asked while Tony was injecting medicine into it, "Mr. Stark, are you really sure that you don't need to conduct systematic study of biochemistry?" "Do not." Tony pulled out the needle and pointed an extremely complex-looking camera at the cage. After doing all this, he quickly walked to the side of the analysis computer and carefully recorded the continuously refreshed data. "If you can reach my level in a certain field of science, you will be surprised to find that no matter what is it, biology, chemistry, physics, engineering, informatics, the ends of science are all connected." Connors was shocked. He knew that there was a big gap in knowledge and wisdom between him and Tony, but Tony heard that meaning. Does he think he has reached the end of science? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Connors moved closer to Tony to see what he was recording. Number of abnormal body movements, body temperature of various parts, abnormal behavior analysis, and some messy formulas and symbols written on paper. The mouse in the cage had begun to lose its hair and swell, with patches of dark green scales appearing on its surface, and a few gleaming sharp claws sprouting from its originally tender and soft feet. Squeak! 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 Hiss! The mouse's voice gradually changed into a lizard. When Connors heard it, he immediately said eagerly, "Now, Mr. Stark, the mouse has turned into a lizard." Stark glanced at the various data on the computer, and his powerful brain power recorded them all in an instant. He trotted to the little white mouse that had turned into a lizard, and took out tools to test its abilities in detail. Super power, super defense, super recovery. On the tray in Tony's hand, there were already 12 lizard rats' front and rear legs that were still twitching, and 3 lizard rat tails that were alive and kicking like loaches, which meant that he had amputated the limbs and tails of lizard rats 3 times. But the lizard rat in the cage still had sound limbs and was unscathed. If it weren't for the green blood splashing on the cage wall, no one would believe that this little guy who acted a little violently had suffered a severed limb. Almost. Connors reminded after Tony's 4th cruel attack, the effect of the potion will gradually decay with the number of rebirths of severed limbs. According to my previous experiments, it is about 4 to 5 times. Sure enough, the dark green scales on the mouse faded away one by one, and the snow-white mouse hairs emerged from the body surface again. The values on the computer dropped rapidly like a waterfall, and a skinny white mouse appeared in the cage again. The lizard state only improves the efficiency of energy utilization, but the energy source needed to regenerate a severed limb is still the energy storage substance in the body. I inject a large amount of glucose before each transformation to prevent myself from becoming what I am now. Connors explained in detail the reasons for this change in mice. He added with great regret. And the object of regeneration of a broken limb is only the organ that I had before the transformation. No matter how I improve it, it can't restore my broken arm. Tony opened the cage, pinched the tail and picked up the dying little white mouse. Squeak, squeak. The mouse's feeble begging for mercy was ignored. Tony threw it casually to Derpy, the mechanical arm standing by, while he tugged on his beard and thought hard. He is not interested in super strength and super endurance at all, because these abilities must be the product of genetic modification. He does not want to be inserted into some lizard, spider, or other genes. The only thing that interests Tony is the super recovery in the lizard state. The commercial value it can generate is not mentioned for the time being, but its healing ability is enough to make everyone excited. The ends of science are connected. This is absolutely true. But there is another saying, the end of science is theology. A pair of dazzling golden eyes flashed in Tony's mind. Thinking of his miraculously healed chest, he touched his nose with a little guilt, if he knew that he was betrayed by me. Chapter 23 Divine Face. Hey! Yuri crossed his legs and answered the phone behind the counter. Sitting in front of him were 4 mutant tribesmen who exuded nervousness. The leader, Vanax, was undergoing an inedited language examination. What? Do you want me to go? The eyes of Shan Yao and the 3 behind Shak lit up. Is the exam going to be suspended? Ha ha ha, Shamao is really unlucky. Although she did pass the exam just now, our exam has been postponed. 1000. I'll go right away. Yuri hung up the phone and met 4 pairs of eyes full of surprise and joy. The corners of his mouth twitched a few times, understanding this wonderful feeling. Boss, are the exams going to be suspended? Vanax sighed fakely, it's such a pity. I wanted to pass the exam in one go like Kate. Haha. Yuri walked out from behind the counter and gave her a hard blow. Looking at the stupid bird crying with his head in his arms, he picked up a copy of Les Miserables on the front desk and stuffed it into her arms, then turned his head. He ordered the 3 shacks, you keep an eye on her. After the translation is completed tonight, I will check when I come back. He pinched Vanax's face that was about to cry, and forced an ugly smile with both hands. Facing the other party's resentful eyes, he smiled evilly and said, how can the exam that has already started end? No need to regret it, after the translation, you will have passed the exam in one go just like Kate. Well. Vanax looked at the exam content that was a finger thick and wanted to make a final attempt. Well. I have run out of refills. Haha. Yuri laughed out loud. He grabbed it from behind the counter and took out a dozen pen refills. He handed it to Vanax's arms and said very softly, don't worry, if you don't have enough, just come to the front desk to get it. Don't tell me. Les Miserables and Oxford Dictionary are enough. Humph. Vanax took the pen refill and said angrily but helplessly, bad boss. Yuri and the other 4 took their places and started the examination again. After proctoring the exam for a while, they returned to the 3rd floor alone to change clothes and prepare to set off. Boss. Yuri looked up from the stairwell and saw Kate, who was wearing a tight black leather coat and a cute cat headband. She held the door frame with one hand and leaned against the wall naturally. Her slender thigh kept rubbing the other one back and forth. Can you not go? I want to mate with you, right now. Yuri blinked and forcibly looked away from his eyes, which had become heated unconsciously. He lowered his head, and 2 villains began to fight in his mind. One shouted I want to mate, and the other shouted $1,000 million. The 2 of them went back and forth, and the fight was very lively. Okay. Yuri strangled the 2 villains to death. He held Kate's waist and said while walking to the bedroom, go change into normal clothes and come with me. Normal clothes. Kate held Yuri's waist between her legs, quickly and seductively circled his crotch and did a backflip. She leaned close to Yuri's ear and asked in confusion, I think this dress is it normal? Call. Yuri ruthlessly pulled off the warm body from his back and threw it on the sofa. He walked into the bedroom, picked out a pure black strapless evening dress and threw it to Kate, saying, wear this tonight. Just as he was about to turn around, he suddenly added, find another bag and bring the leather jacket with you. Yes. Kate easily opened the hidden zipper on the back of the leather jacket, and took it off in 2 or 3 strokes. Yuri looked at the band-aid on the granary and twitched his mouth, so he took out another set of underwear and threw it to her, take that off, and use this to cover it. Yes. Boss. Yuri let out a long sigh. None of these 5 members of the same race are easy to worry about. With this way of life, how can you expect me to let you out to be your own man? After helping Kate open the car door, Yuri pulled the silly cat behind him who was full of curiosity and wanted to test how hard the door handle was, and said to the sturdy young man with a smile in front of him, thank you, Happy. This is what I should do. Happy Kang's eyes frequently fell on Kate, who was wearing a black gauze evening dress. In fact, he had already glanced at her several times while driving because he couldn't help but look at her. How could there be such a perfect woman in this world? Yuri knew very well what Happy was thinking. When shaping the faces and bodies of the 5 Vanax, he racked his brains and thought, and they could be considered world-class. Happy was acting normal. You can't touch it anyway. So. Yuri pulled Kate into his gentle arms, and the latter obediently leaned her little head on his shoulder and rubbed it up and down. Yuri asked with a smile, I would also like to trouble you to take me to find Tony. You know, this villa is too big. Oh well. Happy woke up instantly. He lowered his head in fear and apologized as he led the way forward, I'm sorry, Mr. Yuri, Miss Kate is too beautiful. Thank you. Yuri patted Kate's belly and asked her to thank him too. Unexpectedly, the latter tilted his head and asked in confusion, Boss, am I beautiful? Cough cough. Happy almost stumbled and fell to the ground. He cleared his throat to relieve the embarrassment, and then affirmed extremely seriously from the front, in fact, Miss Kate, you are the most beautiful and elegant woman I have ever seen, Mr. Yuri, what a blessing to have found you as my girlfriend. I'm not, Yuri covered Kate's mouth. He didn't want the silly cat to say another word. So he forcibly changed the subject. Happy, do you know why Tony called me here tonight? As a professional bodyguard, although Tony was out of shape later because he had a suit for personal protection, his professionalism has always been reliable. He can answer almost any question about Tony. To be honest, I don't know the specific reason, but when I saw Tony, I also saw a white coat with a broken arm standing next to him, so, maybe it's some kind of experiment. Broken arm? White coat? Yuri and Kate looked at each other, the latter's eyes were full of doubt and curiosity. Why is the boss looking at me? Do you want me to wear a white coat when I mate? But I didn't bring it. I'm not thinking about you. Yuri decisively withdrew from Kate's mind. He was filled with silly cat's mating. Is it reliable? Following Happy to the elevator, Yuri saw him pull out a red button hidden behind the partition after some operations. Tony asked me to take you directly to his secret garden in the underground garage. It's the only way I know of to get there. Happy explained with his back to the two. He was really afraid that he would lose his composure again. Yuri felt the elevator descending steadily. What a bullshit underground garage. Are there any underground garages built 50 meters below the surface? Ding dong. The elevator stopped, the steel door slowly opened, and Tony, wearing a white coat, walked up quickly. Without even looking at the other two people in the elevator, he pulled Yuri and said as he walked, "You're here, hurry up. Help me see what's going on." Chapter 24 The Underground Laboratory That Never Appeared. Connors. Yuri raised his eyebrows. How did these two people get involved? He looked around. There were many strange experimental machines here, most of them were covered with dust. The latest one seemed to be a dozen cages containing white mice. Yes. Tony pulled Yuri to the experimental table illuminated by a shadowless lamp, pointed at the green lizard rat in the transparent tempered glass and said, "There are some problems with our experiment, and that is that anyway, the potion that caused Connors to turn into a lizard man, no one can perfectly regenerate a severed limb." At this time, the lizard mouse in the experimental box began to degenerate, and the green scales on the body disappeared one by one, but what happened with it was the cracking of the limbs and tail inch by inch. Connors sighed, looked at the fluffy white meatball in the experimental box and said helplessly, "It's like this potion has memory. When time comes, everything will return to its original state." Kate, who followed step by step, finally couldn't hold back her curiosity. She looked at Yuri quietly, and when she saw that he didn't notice her, she immediately reached out and took a cage with a white mouse in it at lightning speed, and raised it to look carefully in front of your face. Squeak! Squeak! The poor little mouse had a look of panic on its face. It hid on all fours in the corner of the cage farthest away from Kate, and buried its pointed little head deeply into its belly. Seeing this, Yuri simply let go of her slender waist. "Take the cage and play aside, don't open it." "Yes." In Tony's eyes that said, "You really know how to play," Kate stuck out her little tongue and licked Yuri's face, then she carried the cage and hid in the corner to play. The trouble disappeared for the time being. Yuri put his arm around Tony's shoulders, narrowed his eyes and said quietly, "Before starting all the things to be done here, do you want to explain to me why there is a self-proclaimed Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency? An agent led a dozen of his men into my handicraft shop." Haha. Tony wanted to fool the past, but seeing that Yuri's eyes had a faint tendency to turn pure white, he quickly raised his hands in a gesture of surrender and said, "I can't explain it, but I can make it up. Tell me in detail." Yuri sat on the experimental table with his hands folded across his chest. He looked at Tony, who had an unhappy face, and said, "You only have one chance." "Okay." Tony is indeed one of the leading capitalists in the Free Beacon country, and the greatest skill of capitalists is to draw big pie. He faced the white mouse in the cage and said impassionedly, "As you can see, I am conducting a great experiment. It will bring good news to hundreds of millions of disabled people in the world, and will also its inventor brought immeasurable wealth and fame. Yuri, is this compensation enough?" 60.00%. Yuri opened his mouth. 20.00% of it is the compensation you give me, and the rest is my value as one of the inventors of this technology. No. Tony was furious in an instant. If this technology is really put into the society, it will inevitably receive help from all sides, and the most valuable gift is naturally its shares. If it is distributed according to Yuri, it will eventually fall on the original shares in his Stark hands will not exceed percent. Up to 40.00%. Tony held out 4 fingers and explained seriously, "First of all, Dr. Connors must have at least 5.00% of the shares. Secondly, Stark must have 20.00% and above. The rest must be given to Congress and various parties, organizations, societies, medical institutions, so the most I can give you is 40.00%. And many more. Connors, who had been listening for a long time, finally couldn't help it anymore. He looked up and down at Yuri, who had no temperament as a pediatric researcher. He looked at Tony with great confusion and asked, "Why are you discussing the sharing issue now? Who is it? Why do you think he can definitely solve our problems?" "Why? Pop." Yuri ordered Connors to sleep on the spot. He stretched out 5 fingers, looked at Tony and said word by word, 50.00%, not a single point less. You should be thankful that we have some friendship, otherwise I will spend every minute let you be like Dr. Connors, helping count the money after being sold. Connors, who was completely controlled by Yuri, spoke up at the right time, "I will provide all the help I can for free. I don't want any shares or profits." Tony swallowed hard, and he thought again of the fear of being completely dominated by someone in a cave. His mustache twitched twice, and Tony was finally defeated. Okay, it was a mistake for me to invite you here, because you are simply a robber." Yuri chuckled and brought the topic to the right track. "Come on, Tony, let me see your experimental process." The pure white eyes flashed away, forgetting everything just now. With a sad face, Dr. Connors picked up the microsyringe and drew out a small amount of lizard medicine for injection. Tony operated the robotic arm and forcibly tore off the hind legs of a white mouse. After fixing it, he cooperated with Connors to inject the medicine in the needle into the poor white mouse. Zhizzy! Zhizzy! Zhizzy hiss! Yuri gently placed his right index finger on the tempered glass cover. Wisps of golden energy passed through the cover that even bullets could not penetrate, and directly entered the body of the completely lizard-shaped white mouse. Scales, flesh, bones, claws, nerves, brain, cells, genes. Yuri closed his eyes and silently felt the great changes taking place in the mouse body. Kate, who was hiding aside and playing with the mouse, quietly guarded him. Her perfect body exuded an extremely dangerous aura. Wow! Tony finally took a look at Kate, and the feeling of electric shock instantly spread throughout the nerves of his body. Facing such a demonic figure, he instantly put the unhappiness behind him, and the dude of the Stark family went online again. "Excuse me, frankly speaking, are you Yuri's female companion? I don't think there is anything about him that is worthy to shut up." In an instant, Kate burst out with a speed that could not be detected by the naked eye. She grasped Tony's neck with one hand and easily lifted him up. She lowered her voice and said in an unquestionable tone, "If you dare to say another word to disturb the boss, I will kill you immediately." Tony had never seen someone with such murderous intent. The moment he looked into those beautiful eyes, he seemed to see a mountain of corpses, a sea of blood, and a jungle of bones rushing towards him. The terrifying pressure made him even 10 seconds after being put down. Couldn't breathe for a few seconds. Ha! Tony, whose face turned purple, took a deep breath. Kate was still protecting Yuri as before, but in Tony's eyes, the once handsome and devilish body had become as terrifying as a wild beast. He was like a cage. The little white mouse in the room crawled on its hands and knees away from Kate, until its rapid breathing gradually calmed down. At this moment, Yuri's golden eyes reopened. He subconsciously looked at where Tony was standing just now and said, "Okay, I already know what's going on." Blinking, he looked at the innocent-looking Kate next to him and asked, "Where are the people?" Chapter 25 Howard's Relic. Tony was so frightened that he was obviously out of sorts for the rest of the time. From time to time, his frightened eyes glanced at Kate, who was squatting aside playing with mice, and from time to time the bloody and terrifying vision flashed through her mind. "Do you understand?" Yuri waved his hand, and Connors, who was still confused despite trying his best to listen, brought a glass of water like a primary school student. Seeing Yuri take it and start drinking, he said embarrassedly, "I understand, but I don't fully understand. The local application of the decay equation you mentioned, can it really be achieved with current science and technology?" Tony. Connors touched Tony, who looked obsessed with sex. "What about you? Do you understand?" "What? Oh." Tony cleared his throat and pretended to tidy up his clothes. He met Yuri's scrutinizing gaze without hesitation and said confidently, "Of course, how could I not understand?" He reached out his hand and wanted to pat Yuri's shoulder, but after feeling the gaze from a certain corner, he took his hand back in a sullen voice. Well, I suddenly remembered that Pepper is still waiting for me upstairs. Yuri. Connors and this beautiful lady, I leave this place to you. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked through the dusty equipment to find an aisle far away from Kate. As he was getting closer to the elevator, he heard Yuri's voice coming from behind him, remember to clean out a room for me. Guest room, I will stay here for one night after I finish my work here. Okay, no problem. Tony turned on the elevator switch and looked at the numbers falling above his head. He felt a mixture of eagerness and joy in his heart. Isn't it just a guest room? As long as you can get me away from this scary woman, I'll have no problem preparing all kinds of props for you. Ding dong. Tony rushed in and immediately pressed the door close button frantically. It wasn't until the elevator doors closed that no more than one person could pass through. He took a deep breath and relaxed. I won't even touch a woman for a week. Tony, who had sworn a poisonous oath, paused and then changed his words. Except Pepper. In the underground laboratory, Yuri did not immediately start modifying the lizard potion. He put his hand on the rigid wall and activated his mechanical ability to instantly destroy all the cameras in the room. Wiping off the thick dust on a certain machine, a line of English letters was revealed, Strategic Scientific Reserve Institute. What is this for? Kate curiously pressed the most conspicuous green button on the machine, and the next second there was a humming sound from the operation of high-power electrical appliances, and a faint blue light appeared in the gap at the machine's connection. Kate shrank her neck and hid behind Yuri. She put her head on Yuri's shoulder, blinking her big eyes and looking timidly and curiously at the machine where the blue light was getting brighter and brighter. Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! 3 crisp sounds sounded inside the machine. Yuri followed the sound to find a small drawer-like part. After opening it, he found 3 cubes shining with dazzling blue light lying quietly inside. The blue light shone on Yuri, and he felt that a certain ability in his body began to stir. After careful inspection, it turned out to be the super speed he finally obtained from Mockery. Kate. Yuri picked up a cube and held it tightly in the palm of his left hand. A gorgeous blue light swirled up along a certain pattern and soon infected the entire arm. Yuri picked up another piece and held it in his right hand. He closed his eyes and commanded a second before he exerted force to hold the 2 thumb-sized cubes, guard me and don't let anyone get close. Boom! The violent blue energy group pushed away all the surrounding equipment. Not far away, the weak Dr. Connors was directly knocked into the wall and fell to the ground. He didn't know whether he was alive or dead. Yuri's veins were exposed all over his body, and he unconsciously revealed his original shape under the tremendous pain. The dozens of transmission tubes behind his back frantically absorbed the space energy floating in the air, and transmitted it all into Yuri's body drop by drop. Time seemed to slow down extremely slowly at this moment. It was only a few seconds, but it seemed to Yuri that a long time had passed. The blue light gradually disappeared from his body surface, intertwined with the super speed and merged into mysterious blue-gold lines. As soon as his mind moved, he saw a brilliant blue-gold light strip passing by, and he appeared on the other side of the underground laboratory without warning. Apart from the dazzling light and shadow effects, the entire process failed to lift even a thin piece of paper in the path. Kate saw him returning to his human form little by little and knew that some kind of change had ended. She approached with concern, sniffed some parts of Yuri's body with her nose and asked, "Boss, are you okay?" Yuri lightly clenched his fists, and faint blue-gold lines flashed away. He rubbed Silly Cat's head and replied with a smile, "I'm fine, I've never felt better." With a wave of his hand, dozens of black metal balls dispersed, and golden rays of light swept from top to bottom across all the old-looking machines in the underground laboratory. Dang dang! The instantaneous disappearance of the object immediately caused the air pressure in the laboratory to drop. A large amount of air poured into the laboratory through the elevator, causing the elevator door to make a loud noise. Yuri stood still in the strong wind. He looked around and guessed that this should be Tony's father, Howard Stark's secret laboratory, and those who were taken into the Black Ball should be the current Snake Shield Bureau. The Cosmic Cube energy gun manufacturing line to be copied. After putting away the Black Ball, he asked Kate to hold on to the remaining experimental equipment related to the lizard potion, while he squatted in front of Connors and tested his breath. Died. Yuri curled his lips. Human beings are really a fragile race, but it is precisely because of their strong reproductive ability, high level of intelligence and easy destruction that they were chosen by the gods to become the fuel for the birth of new gods. Can I eat him? After Kate finished the task given to her by Yuri, she swallowed her saliva at the still warm body. After all, she was a doctor. If you eat him, he will be smarter than a stupid bird, right? What you eat is what you need to supplement, right? No. Yuri carried the doctor's body to a chair, and his golden eyes turned pure white in an instant. The doctor suddenly twitched a few times, and then opened his eyelids, revealing the pure white underneath. White eyes. A strange scene appeared. Yuri and the doctor spoke at the same time. Their expressions cannot be said to be not much different, they can only be said to be exactly the same. Yuri and Connors spoke at the same time. I also need to borrow from Dr. Connors's more developed brain. Kate looked at the scene in front of her curiously, her big eyes full of novelty. This is a new ability unlocked by Yuri's open mind. Its effect can be roughly understood as installing a linked processor on the brain, which can not only increase brain capacity, but also greatly increase thinking speed and understanding ability. He raised his arm, and Connor's body beside him also completed this action simultaneously. Yuri could clearly feel the death of the nervous system in the corpse, because as time passed, he could no longer even feel the corpse. Bang! All the nerve cells in Dr. Connor's legs finally died. After losing Yuri's control, his joints softened and he collapsed on the chair again. Seeing this, Yuri ignored it and walked to the experimental table. He took out a drop of lizard medicine with an ultrafine needle and dropped it on the glass slide. Strands of golden life energy overflowed from his fingertips and penetrated into the dark green droplets on the glass slide. Now, the transformation begins. Chapter 26 Blue-Green Bug. Eliminate the tyrannical genes that can be directly felt, the intermittent and trivial genes, and the genes that are harmful to the recovery of injuries under the perception of life energy. Yuri opened his eyes, and was surprised to find that the color of the drop of lizard potion on the glass slide turned blue and green. Wow! With his thinking accelerating, he suddenly came up with a bold idea. If the potion that appeared green to the naked eye was peeled off little by little, leaving only pure blue, could the target potion be obtained directly? With the idea that nothing would go wrong after a try, he used his eyesight and controlled his life energy to roughly extract all the genes that appear green in appearance and can be transcribed and translated into green substances intuitively. Looking at the two distinct drops of medicine, one blue and one green, on the slide, he ordered Kate, who was watching fiercely on the side, "Go, bring 2 white mice over, let us see their respective effects." Squeak! 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 The 2 mice vividly performed what it means to be cowardly as a mouse and run around with its head in its hands. They shrank in fear in the corner farthest from Kate and screamed loudly to show their submission. Yuri took out 2 brand new microsyringes, sucked up the 2 drops of medicine on the slide and put them away. He opened a cage that Kate was carrying, and stretched out his sinful hand to the trembling rat inside. "Come here." He picked up the needle tube filled with green medicine, and inserted it precisely into the carotid artery of the mouse. The fast-flowing blood quickly spread the pharmaceutical factors throughout the body. In less than a second, the size of the white mouse in Yuri's hand expanded rapidly, and he could clearly feel that its struggle became stronger. More than 1 magnitude. Hizzy. Hiss. This time the mouse transformed into a lizard significantly faster. Its slippery body kept bumping left and right in Yuri's hands, and it almost escaped several times. Hiss hiss. The size of the lizard mouse continued to expand, and huge deformed muscles propped up the scales like tumors. Its small eyes began to congest and swell, and the skin all over its body made the tearing sound of overwhelmed. Seeing that the situation was not good, Yuri quickly threw it into the experimental cabin made of tempered glass and closed the door. Oh! Red and green blood mist covered the inner wall of the experimental cabin. Yuri looked closer and found that there were only a few broken white bones scattered everywhere inside. Tisk tisk! Click the auto-clean button, and streams of high-pressure disinfectant water will be ejected from the hidden nozzles in the experimental cabin, quickly cleaning the bloody and cruel scene. He opened the cage in Kate's hand, took out the second mouse inside, and without hesitation injected the blue potion, which represents safe and harmless in the Marvel Universe, into its artery. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Kate poked the white mouse, which seemed to have no change, and asked confusedly, "Is the potion broken?" "There is another possibility." Yuri pinched one of the mouse's hind legs with his thumb and index finger. And surging power burst out in the next moment. Crack! The still twitching residual limb carried some bone marrow and nerves away from the main body. In the panicked flopping movements of the mouse, the wound that should have been empty and bleeding unexpectedly sprouted out like worms at a speed visible to the naked eye. Granulation. Bones, flesh and blood, tendons. A new and powerful hind leg regenerated, kicking and bouncing with great energy under the control of its owner. Yuri put the white mouse into the experimental cabin and personally took a new white mouse and placed it next to it. Repeating the same trick, he separated the original lizard medicine into blue and green parts. After storing them separately with microsyringes, he opened the cage and directly tore off one of the white mouse's hind legs without injecting any medicine. Squeak! Squeak! Amid the horrified screams of the white mouse, he injected the blue medicine into its body, and a brand new hind leg quickly reappeared, replacing the original accessory in Yuri's hand. Next is the moment to witness the miracle. Calling Kate, whose animalistic nature has not diminished, to the experimental cabin, he ordered her to continue harming the two mice in a measured manner. He himself walked up to Dr. Connors, whose body temperature had begun to drop, and used a black ball to collect the corpse, which had no other use. It is impossible to eat humans. All mutants who have transformed into humans are no longer allowed to feed on humans. This corpse could only be discovered by some homeless people living in the underground waterway one night, and then ignore him and follow the sewage flow to the distance. Boss. Kate pinched the tails of two white mice that were obviously emaciated but could not see any scars on their bodies, and raised them in front of Yuri as if to take credit. It's time to use caution. If you keep playing with them, they may die. Good job. Yuri took a little white mouse, and a sharp claw suddenly emerged from his round fingertips. He lightly scratched the fur of the little white mouse's back, leaving a scar that continuously oozes blood. The mouse wailed feebly. Perhaps the energy of the potion had been exhausted, or perhaps there were no nutrients in its body that could provide the energy needed to regenerate the severed limbs. The wound on its back healed at an alarmingly slow rate, and in the end, a scar was left. A small scar of 2 to 3 centimeters. Yuri pulled the mouse's hind legs, and there was no sign of them breaking or collapsing. The golden life energy seeps in and feels carefully, but no obvious problems can be detected. He threw the white mouse into the cage, raised his head and asked Kate, "Which one is this? The one who sprays the medicine first and then pulls the leg, or the one who pulls the leg first and then sprays the medicine?" Kate replied without hesitation, "Boss, the one you have in your hand is the one that first pulled the leg and then applied medicine." Yuri nodded with satisfaction. He felt as if he had really discovered and mastered one of the bugs in this world. If he conducts genetic experiments in the future to study new medicines, he only needs to ensure that they appear blue visible to the naked eye under normal conditions. Basically there won't be much of a problem. Once you are born, you will be familiar with it twice, and you will be able to hit the road in the dark 3 times. Yuri held the lizard potion tubes that were supposed to be put into the canary device and distributed throughout New York with both hands. Only % of the potions were left in them. The missing ones may have been consumed by Tony. The golden energy quickly penetrated into the green potion, accurately and efficiently separating it into 2 new pills of % blue and % green. Yuri found a slightly larger needle and took away all the green hazardous garbage. After thinking about it, he took away half of the remaining blue beneficial items. With a wave of his hand, he put the 2 needle tubes into the black ball. He put the remaining 2 finger-deep glass tubes into the experimental box, hugged Kate, who could not wait, and walked towards the elevator door. "Boss, can we mate now? Don't tear off my clothes yet, wait a moment, wait a moment. Let me lock the door, at least." Chapter 27 Borrowing Money. The next morning, Yuri was woken up by Kate, who was annoying him, and the two had an in-depth discussion again, and they didn't leave the room until 8:30. The camera in the corridor captured Yuri's figure, and the built-in artificial intelligence Jarvis immediately reminded, "Mr. Ambrosius, please move to the restaurant on the 1st floor, where there is breakfast prepared for you and Miss Kate, and Mr. Stark is also waiting to discuss with you." Yuri took Kate's arm and walked to the restaurant on the 1st floor, half intimately and half supporting. The leader's strength is reflected in any aspect, whether it is combat power or IQ, whether it is action ability or sexual intercourse ability. Crush all of the same race. Tony and Yuri walked into the extremely luxuriously decorated restaurant on the 1st floor almost at the same time. The former grabbed a cheeseburger prepared for him. He raised the canary pipe in his hand and asked vaguely while stuffing something into his mouth. "Road. Where is Dr. Connors? Where are the machines in the lab? What about the production process of medicine? The effect is very good, but if it cannot be mass-produced, our cooperation last night will be ruined." Yuri let go of Kate, who was pressing her whole body on his arm, and let her go to the slowly rotating food line to get what she liked. He casually took a table knife from the dining table and stood directly in front of the meal line while eating and said, "Don't be anxious, Tony. Creating a company is never something that can be completed in a short time." Tony glanced at Kate from afar, who was carefully picking food across the way. After making sure it was safe, he took a small step closer to Yuri and said, "I have a very professional team. It is not difficult to create a company. The only thing we lack now is someone who can mass-produce it." Potion. Yuri used his masseter muscles to chew up and swallow the steak that almost burst out of his mouth. He picked up a glass of red wine and drank it down. While extending the knife to another piece of steak, the old god said, "I'm going to before I hand over the mass production formula to you, I want to ask you to borrow some money." Tony swallowed the last bite of the cheeseburger and twirled his fingers with unsatisfied interest. After hearing this, he was quite surprised and asked Yuri, who had a calm face, "Borrow money? Have you had any big expenses recently?" Yuri opened his mouth wide and swallowed the whole steak. His hard teeth easily tore it into pieces. The full amount of food made it impossible for him to open his mouth to speak, but it could not prevent Tony from hearing what he wanted to say. "It's none of your business, Tony. You just need to answer me, borrow or not." Tony was startled by the sudden voice in his head. He jumped far away, covered his ears and looked at Yuri who was chewing steak seriously in horror and yelled, "Get out of my head! Relax, Tony." Yuri directly and locally controlled some of Tony's organs, controlling his endocrine glands to release inhibitory hormones. Human emotions are easily manipulated because most of them are related to the levels of various hormones in the body. Tony's feeling now is very strange. Although he is extremely angry and terrified, his heart is strangely calm. "What did you do to me again?" Tony looked at Kate who was silently guarding Yuri with fear, and could neither advance nor retreat for a moment. Yuri had enough time to scrape off the white cream from the corner of Kate's mouth with a table knife, and continued the intracranial transmission, "I just managed the emotions you couldn't manage for you. You see, now we can talk calmly." After Tony scolded Yuri calmly, he sighed expressionlessly. After confirming that there was nothing unusual except for some strange senses, he quickly adjusted his condition and adapted to the current situation. "It's okay to borrow money, but you have to pledge this thing to me. I will lend you as much as the value of the thing you pledge here is worth." Tony saw that Yuri was eating so deliciously, so he also got another cheeseburger and a glass of red wine. The latter took a long time and finally swallowed the steak in his mouth. He picked up a glass of new wine and drank it in one gulp. He pointed to the secret laboratory under the floor and asked, "The only shares I can give you are the shares of the new company. How much do you think he's worth?" "What?" Tony was shocked. He looked Yuri up and down. There was no hint of joking in his golden eyes. He spread his hands and replied while thinking, "This is not an easy question to answer, Yuri. As your friend, I'll give it a valuation. How about 50 billion? Yuri nodded and took a hard bite on the third piece of steak. The overflowing juices were squeezed out by the suddenly compressed muscle fibers, making a sizzling sound. He looked at Tony and said through gritted teeth as if talking to himself, "It seems you don't want to borrow it anymore." Tony leaned back and denied it. He said angrily, "If this potion can only be produced through magic owned by a certain major shareholder who holds 50.00% of the shares. Believe me Yuri, 50 billion is really it's just the value of your 50.00% shares. 5,000 billion. Yuri swallowed the meat sauce in his mouth and stuffed the remaining steak into his mouth. He stretched out a hand with the 5 fingers spread widely, "Considering the recent stock price of Stark Industries, if it plummets, I only ask you to borrow 5,000 billion. You don't have to worry about the mass production process. I will naturally take out the money when I get it." Tony looked at Yuri who was no longer willing to discuss and fell silent. After finishing his burger and drinking all his wine, he walked alone to the corridor outside the restaurant and dialed Pepper's number. "Hello. Get ready Pepper, I need to make a cash transfer of up to 5,000 billion. "What?" The sharp sound stung Tony's eardrums, and he couldn't help but move the phone further away. After Pepper had vented her emotions and calmed down a little, he spoke again, "Get ready in one day, can you do it?" "I do not know." The little Pepper on the other end of the phone pushed the hair that fell from her forehead behind her ears. She reported the recent expenses one by one. "You announced the closure of the weapons manufacturing department, and the stock price fell." I know. Tony interrupted Pepper, "Watch it Pepper, it won't be long before it picks up again. This is just one of them. Pepper went on to state, you and your good Uncle Opadri have fought from the ground floor to the top of the Stark Tower, and the entire building needs repairs and maintenance. I know. Tony gave the solution without hesitation, seize Obaday's bank account so we can use his money. After hearing this wonderful idea, Pepper immediately knew that there must be a lot of corruption money during Obaday's term. As long as it can be used, many problems can be solved. But the woman's pride made it impossible for her to give up so easily. After thinking about it, she asked again, even so, what about the rare metals you asked me to continue to acquire? Okay. Tony leaned against the wall, admiring the luxurious oil painting opposite, while shrugging and surrendering, then suspend the acquisition, and take out the $5,000 billion first no matter what, and we can wait until the stock price rebounds to talk about anything else. Pepper held the phone between her ear and shoulder, and quickly packed up the documents on the desktop with both hands. Suddenly, she paused, quickly picked up the phone and asked in a very serious tone, what about our share recovery plan? We are still 50.00% away from the expected 15.00%. Without this 5,000 billion, you may not be able to complete the absolute control of the company. Tony's expression froze for an instant. He glanced at Yuri and Yuri, who were still enjoying their meal in the restaurant, and said in a heavy and sad tone, then let's put the matter of acquiring equity aside for now. When things here are over, there will be more funds and more equity than 50.00%. Come invest. Chapter 28. Can this be called car theft? Yuri and the two in the restaurant took advantage of Tony's absence and immediately started eating at 10 times speed. In less than 3 minutes, all the meat and high-energy foods on the meal line were swept away by the two of them. My dear brother Tony. Is it all over? Yuri took a full glass of red wine from Kate and let her wipe the corners of her mouth gently. After taking a sip, he bowed to Tony and asked him bluntly, when will the money arrive? Tony stared at the clean meal line in stunned silence. He stared at Yuri's flat belly for a long time, and finally looked away under Kate's cold gaze. He took an apple and took a bite. While chewing, he replied casually, it will be paid within a day. Besides, are you eating these? He pointed at the empty meal line beside him and asked curiously, nothing else, I just want to know why your belly doesn't seem to have changed at all. It's none of your business. Yuri drank the red wine in one gulp, put down the empty wine glass gently, pulled Kate, who was inexplicably cold, and turned around and left. As Tony said fuck angrily but helplessly, a clear voice sounded in his mind. Tonight you come to your ancestors' handicraft shop, hand over the money and deliver the goods. Dear Tony, goodbye. I hope never to see you again. Tony whispered to the retreating figure. He could feel that he was recovering, and the birth and death of intense emotions such as joy, anger, sorrow, and joy returned to his control one by one. Before he could feel very happy about this incident, he heard Jarvis above his head say, Mr. Ambrosius has driven away the Porsche in your garage. Can you please let me go? Tony's face turned red and blue from time to time, vividly demonstrating what blowing his beard and staring means. After a while, he said helplessly, in that case, then. Gentlemen. Jarvis interrupted, the latest situation is that Miss Kate got out of the car and kicked the door open, and Mr. Julian Ambrosius drove away with her. Do you want to call the police, Mr. Stark? Fuck. 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 Tony grabbed a chair in the restaurant to vent his emotions, but he obviously overestimated his own strength. After lifting it twice and realizing that it was not a weapon he could control at all, Tony overturned the chair to the ground and kicked it hard. Kicked and said, Jarvis, from now on, I will replace the chairs at home with lightweight ones. They must be ones that I can lift. Noted, sir. Jarvis behaved as usual, and then returned to the previous topic, Sir, do you need me to call the police on Mr. Ambrosius's car theft behavior? Tony wiped his face with one hand and regained his composure in the blink of an eye. He twitched the corner of his mouth and said, Can you recall my car stolen? He clearly robbed it. Don't call the police. Tony glanced at the camera above his head, waved his hand and said, Contact the maintenance staff to repair the door, and let's forget about it. Boss. Kate sat in the passenger seat, her small hands restlessly roaming Yuri's body. The soft and boneless body twisted and rolled in the small carriage, and actually sat directly on Yuri's lap. She licked Yuri's earlobe in small mouthfuls and said coquettishly, I'm so full, then just stay here. Yuri grabbed her by the neck and threw her directly into the back seat. He looked at the rearview mirror with a serious expression, There are only 24 hours in a day, and it takes at least 4 hours for us to mate. Today I have made a rule, no one is allowed to give me sex during the day. Do this. Kate huddled pitifully in the back seat, her big eyes darting around. She poked Yuri with a finger and asked, "What if I can't grab Vanex?" Yuri chuckled, "That's your problem." He drove the car very fast and returned to the door of the handicraft shop in just 10 minutes. Pedestrians on the street watched in surprise as a man and a woman, both of whom were excellent in temperament and appearance, opened the door and walked into the shop, and they actually had the idea of opening the door and entering the shop to take a look. Yuri caught a glimpse of some people approaching the shop, rolled his eyes and drove them away. "Boss!" Vanax, who was exuding a decadent aura, leaned forward feebly, and Yuri glanced at the table full of empty pen refills, rubbed the head of the silly bird that had flung himself into his arms with great satisfaction, and said, "Have you finished the translation?" Vanax stretched out his hand and pinched off a strand of hair that didn't belong to Yuri but was tangled in Yuri's clothes. And glared at the radiant Kate fiercely, "This bitch cat dared to take advantage of my wife to stop stealing from the boss." Kate stared back with confidence, and asked Vanax with her head held high, "The boss is asking you something, silly bird." The murderous aura in Vanax disappeared instantly. She walked down from Yuri with a whoosh, and handed Yuri a thick stack of handwritten letters on the table, with "you" written all over her face. "Come on, praise me," he said, "Boss, I've finished translating. It took me a whole night and 13 pen refills." Although Yuri couldn't read it didn't affect his pretense at all. He flipped it over casually with his hands, but his eyes looked serious. "The translation is good." "Hey hey!" Vanax jumped up to Yuri with his hands behind his back, raised his head proudly and asked knowingly, "Did I pass the exam?" "It's over." Yuri wanted to rub her head as a reward, but found that his hand was tightly held by Kate. Helpless, he had no choice but to turn sideways and lower his head, and in the midst of Vanax's surprised and incomprehensible eyes and Kate's annoyance at stealing the chicken, he gently kissed the corner of the former's mouth. "All right." Yuri pushed both women away and temporarily appointed them as examiners for the 3 shacks. After finishing, while all 5 people were there, he issued a second task to the 5 tribesmen: all the exams must be passed before lunch. After lunch, go to the bookstore next door with Ethan. You need more knowledge and information about the Arctic. Watching Vanax and Kate rush the 3 shacks into the second floor like escorting prisoners, Yuri and Ethan, who was working hard at the front desk, doing nothing, ordered, "I have to conduct an important research on the 3rd floor, so you will turn off your cell phone, and if someone comes to see you, if you can drag it with you. If you can't, go to the 2nd floor to find Vanax, and they will help you solve the problem." "Good boss." Ethan nodded happily. Thanks to the store's sign that people hate ghosts, he didn't think anyone would come here. Even if he did meet someone like the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Bureau a few days ago, he would believe that the 5 inhumanly strong guys on the 2nd floor will handle the problem well. Chapter 29: The Power of Space. Returning to the 3rd floor, the first thing Yuri did was to open all the various technological magic arrays in the room: isolation type, defense type, attack type, energy gathering type. In an instant, countless golden mysteries were flowing. Patterns spread throughout the room. The 5 guys who were taking exams on the 2nd floor all looked at the ceiling above their heads. The next second, Vanax shook the examination questions in his hands and brought the other 4 people's thoughts back to reality with a ferocious expression. "Look. What are you looking at? The exam is now." After all the magic circles were activated, Yuri took out all the machines that Howard had left in the underground laboratory from the black ball. The dust covering them had been eliminated in the black ball. Now they are all sharp-edged and shining with a metallic luster. The main materials of these machines are not ordinary steel or alloys. They have excellent resistance and toughness to energy. Presumably they are some kind of new alloy specially found or invented by Hydra to extract the energy of the cosmic cube. After all, it is the energy ray that can destroy a tank with one shot, will turn into ashes and disappear without a trace if anyone tries to use it without an instrument capable of carrying its brutal properties. Under Yuri's control, the energy gathering array absorbs all the energy gathered from the sky and the earth and converts it into electrical energy. At the same time, he also transformed the sockets of each machine into magic runes that can directly connect to the energy gathering array. There is no doubt that if these machines are restored to operation now, the power consumed will definitely not be satisfied by the 220V household voltage. He does not want to cause a large-scale power system paralysis like when he made Captain America. He used his ability to see through these machines one by one. Although Howard was not as sharp as Tony, he still needed to be wary of whether the other party had planted some means to prevent the machines from leaking out decades ago. Nothing at all. Yuri checked more carefully several times. These machines were clean, and there were no traces of modifications in any part. There were no foreign objects or dangerous items in the gaps. Since you, Howard, are so candid, I'm not welcome. When the machines were started one by one, a low hum and a faint blue light soon spread throughout the third floor. Yuri didn't know how much energy of the cosmic cube was still left in these machines, so he didn't dare to hesitate at all. He immediately covered it with his palm and used his ability to sense the operation mode and specific functions of all the machines. This is sealing, this is compression, this is adjustment. Pieces of metal flew out of the black ball, and quickly fused and deformed under Yuri's control, forming transmission tubes covered with runes. The dismantled messy machines were connected in order, and a dazzling bright blue energy the flow enters the transmission tube from the first machine. It can be seen with the naked eye. The tubes made of ordinary metal have a tendency to deform and collapse in an instant, but under the influence of bright golden runes, they still carry the energy of the universe Rubik's Cube. It went into the second machine without any problems. At this moment, the buzzing sound of the first machine and the shining blue light in the gaps between its parts disappeared at the same time, while the buzzing sound of the second machine and the shining blue light in the gaps between its parts suddenly became louder. Put. Yuri carefully touched the energy in the machine, and instinctively felt its immeasurable power and characteristics that seemed to contain the universe. The desire from the soul surged out, prompting him to approach and understand the power contained in it. The mystery is that the runes representing divine speed and superpower are spread all over the body unconsciously, and the flowing and circulating lines slowly but surely open up new paths. Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! All the machines fell silent, leaving only a faint glimmer of blue light in the gap of the original drawer opened by Yuri. The runes representing divine speed and superpower are still spreading and growing, and they are interconnected and intertwined, showing a different kind of beauty. Yuri remains motionless. But the space around him is swaying like the water surface caressed by the breeze. Circle after circle of small, continuous ripples. The golden eyes are still shining brightly, but if you look closely, you can find the hollowness hidden in them. His thoughts at the moment followed a bright blue meteor that flew an unknown distance. He was vaguely aware of the displacement of stars, the transformation of space, and the birth and death of the universe. But every time he wanted to understand it carefully, it was as if he was seeing through a layer of frosted glass. It can't be real. Time passed by minute by second, and the sun was setting in the west unknowingly. At a certain moment, the speed runes, which were several times more complex and mysterious than before, finally stopped expanding and extending. At the same time, they were swimming in the vastness. Yuri finally woke up. Call. The huge gap caused by the transformation between reality and reality made him feel a little uncomfortable. After taking a few deep breaths to calm down, he realized the changes in himself. Without warning, his figure suddenly appeared in the corner of the wall more than 10 meters away. In the next moment, he raised his hand and stretched it forward, but his entire arm appeared strangely in front of the drawer that was emitting a faint blue light. The power of space. Yuri instantly came to the broken arm and completed the rendezvous with it. The reason for performing this magical scene was none other than the attributes of space he realized from the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Although he was confused and couldn't figure out how to do it, he had super speed and superpower. However, he actively absorbed and assimilated this higher-level attribute energy, allowing Yuri to use it without knowing why. A strange expression flashed across Yuri's face. What's this? Are you a mature body and have learned to improve yourself? But the improvement in strength is undoubtedly a good thing. Not only is he now faster than before, but he can also teleport short distances within 20 meters of his body, no forward shaking, no process, just a thought, until he reaches the end. Like a child who just got a new toy, Yuri continued to become proficient in the use of space abilities. Thanks to the mutant's strong fighting instincts, he developed front and rear flanking attacks, and a series of abilities that can be used, such as I Cracked, the Great Light's Feet, etc. Just when he was about to take up the challenge again, he felt extremely tired. Not only was the energy in his body exhausted, but his mind was also tired. Only then did Yuri realize that the current energy storage and energy quality level of his body were simply not enough to support his long-term use of advanced energy such as the power of space. Helpless, he had no choice but to walk into the energy gathering array and calculate his limit based on the previous use while charging. 33 times. Knowing this but not knowing why, whether it is teleportation or something else, all he can do is to use the power of space to anchor a certain position, and then use the power of space to move to the anchored position. Position, in this case, whether it is moving 1 meter or moving 20 meters, the consumption of space power is exactly the same, and his current limit is to perform 33 anchoring and displacements. What kind of control is this? Yuri frowned and opened the drawer. There were 12 square blue cubes about the size of a fingertip lying quietly inside. He waved his hand and stored them properly somewhere in the space inside the black ball, and then put them away. The machines that had lost their energy source and were no different from scrap metal were put away. Energy, energy. Glancing at the clock on the wall, 7:25, he murmured, I don't have much time left. Chapter 30 Raw Tier Mark 2. Tuk tuk tuk. Tuk tuk tuk. Ethan, who was troubled by 5 people and couldn't return home, heard a knock on the door and breathed a sigh of relief. He forced a smile and stood up from the Arctic Geography Knowledge Study group where the discussion was in full swing, and hurriedly ran to open the door. I really don't know where my boss found this group of powerful people. At first, he could lead the entire group to learn knowledge, but not long after, these 5 guys were able to achieve 10 lines at a glance, photographic memory, and draw inferences from one instance. Their learning progress is beyond his control, so forget it. After all, he who hears the Tao in no particular order and masters it is the teacher. Although he can't keep up with everyone's learning progress, he can still gain a lot of serious knowledge just by sitting here. But as they sat, the style of this group of people suddenly changed. According to the geological structure, I can break 10 meters of ice with one punch, what about you? And according to the analysis results of ocean currents, I can break 10 meters of ice with one punch. Is it faster to swim or take a boat from the United States to the North Pole, and the global airflow will be stable next month? I think flying there will definitely be faster than taking a plane. The key is that this group of people are always discussing the final extreme. Ask him seriously. What do you think, Teacher Ethan? I sit and watch. Is this a topic that I, a mere mortal, can participate in? Ethan walked towards the store door with a smile on his face. He couldn't help but feel that his mother was selling more and more. He had already decided not to accept any teaching tasks that Yuri would arrange for him in the future. Absolutely not. I leaned on the peephole of the closed store door and looked out. There was no one on the quiet street. Ethan frowned. Is he probably a night owl or drug addict just knocking on the door in boredom? Just as he was about to go back to say goodbye to the 5 people and go home from get off work, 2 narrow eyes shining with crystal white light and an angular red gold metal head occupied Ethan's entire field of vision behind the cat's eyes. Holy shines! Ethan was so frightened that he stepped back and was about to fall to the ground because he tripped over the table leg, but Chad appeared behind him like a ghost and gently helped him up. At the same time, the other 4 people who were discussing just now also came to the door of the store. Among them, Kate twitched her nose slightly, and a look of disdain and contempt suddenly appeared on her face. She waved her hand and said nonchalantly, "Open the door, yes, here comes the boss money giver." At this time, Ethan finally calmed down. The rudeness just now was just because Tony appeared too suddenly. After calming down, who would be frightened by a person hiding in a metal can? He thanked Chitar who had been supporting his back. And then took out the key from the front desk and opened the door lock. When the 5 people saw this, Shiran returned to the original route and continued to discuss the problem. Seeing how cleanly they left, Ethan hesitated and shouted, "You can come in outside the door." He hurriedly caught up with the 5 people who asked him to leave. An extremely humble monster. Okay, he's still a little timid. Crack. The security door was pushed open violently, and a golden and red figure quickly flashed into the shop like a thief and closed the door. Tony breathed a sigh of relief in the suit, turned around and complained, "Why are you so slow today, Yuri? Are you overworked and have to hold on to the wall to go downstairs?" The discussion that was not very loud on the first floor of the shop was temporarily suspended. The 5 loyal mutants stood up and glared at the red and gold armor that was frozen in place. The Vanax in it released a powerful aura. As he approached Tony, he asked dissatisfiedly, "Are you questioning the boss's strength? Stupid mortal." Jarvis, the artificial intelligence built into the armor, promptly reminded, "Mr. Stark, after preliminary scanning, except for Mr. Ethan, the other 5 people present, like Miss Kate whom you marked as a focus not long ago, are unable to traces of past existence were found on the internet. It is speculated that there is an 80.00% chance that they have abilities comparable to Miss Kate. It is recommended to escape immediately. Why don't you answer? Vanax quickly flashed in front of Tony, with 5 slender fingers protruding toward the armor's head like claws. Before the armor made an automatic defensive action, he directly buckled end steps onto Tony's visor. The front ends of the 5 fingers instantly turned into sharp claws, easily leaving 5 shallow depressions on the alloy that bullets could not penetrate. It was only then that the armor's arms grasped Vanax's arm. Tony finally came to his senses in the huge crisis. Jarvis kept reporting the degree of damage to the visor. In just a few short seconds, within seconds, the initial surface dent turned into 70.00% damage to the connecting gear. Tony felt that what he was grasping was not an arm, but an iron rod that was stronger than Captain America's shield. Even if the hydraulics and thrusters at his fingers and arms were overloaded, he could not shake it in the slightest. Ethan! Help me! Ethan, who was blocked behind by the 4 shacks, heard this familiar voice and asked softly with disbelief, Tony. A series of leaky wires were exposed from the connection between the visor and the helmet. Before Tony had time to answer, he heard Vanax let out a soft drink. He suddenly exerted force on his wrist and directly pulled off the entire mask, and then used a straight the other free hand grabbed the arm of the armor that was still exerting force, and with a twist pulled down the propeller that was constantly spraying flames. Bang! Vanax kicked Tony away. The heavy steel armor came into close contact with the security door, making a huge sound. Mysterious golden patterns emerged, instantly resolving the impact transmitted to the door. Etc., etc. Seeing that Vanax wanted to continue, Ethan quickly squeezed out from behind the 4 of them. Vanax, Tony, and Yuri are very good friends, and didn't you hear what Kate said? He is here this time to give money, otherwise. Let's wait until Yuri comes down. Vanax glanced at Tony, who was struggling to get up from the ground, and turned to Kate, the civet cat who was watching on the wall with her arms folded, for confirmation. When she saw the other party nodded, she curled her lips and murmured in a rather unsatisfying low voice, I still have it. I thought we could have a fight. Where is Yuri? Tony held his kicked stomach with one hand and stood up with difficulty while holding on to the wall with the other hand. He walked to the front desk and leaned against it. His eyes were evasive as he passed by the 5 people who had returned to the original route to start the discussion. He quickly walked over. On Ethan, he took a deep breath, and the muscles affected the nerves and caused pain, which made his rather handsome face twitch unnaturally. I want to discuss with him the compensation for injuries caused by employees. I don't think it's necessary. A beam of golden life energy flew out from the stairwell, and hit Tony accurately, who was holding his stomach and looking in pain. The 5 people who had just discussed for a few words stood up again before their stools got warm. They looked towards the handsome man who walked slowly downstairs. Had a much stronger aura than before. A trace of fanaticism flashed across the face of Vanax, who had just torn off his mask. He lowered his head and joined the 5 people around him. He said in a respectful tone, Boss. Yuri nodded to them, holding a metal ball the size of a ping-pong ball in his hand and kept throwing it up and down. He smiled at Tony, because you weren't injured at all. Chapter 31. Ethan was blowing the soft evening breeze and rode his bicycle unsteadily towards home. What he experienced tonight was really outrageous. Tony actually updated and upgraded the Mark I to make the Mark II, and the boss shop in it. The stupid and adorable Vanax is able to tear Tony's Mark II alive with flesh and blood. That's not all. The boss took out a metal ball the size of a table tennis ball and was able to get $5,000 billion from Tony. Moreover, the 2 of them had developed a drug that can regenerate amputated limbs and planned to set up a company. And sold it to the public. What excited him most was that Yuri actually wanted to replace him on the board of directors of this company that had not yet been established. There is no better way to reach the pinnacle of life than this. Ethan touched the smooth Tianling gear, with a hint of loss in his eyes. No matter how good his career, no matter how much power and money he could not return to that war-torn town, nor could he save his life from being taken away by the war. My wife and daughter. Whoosh. Crack. Ethan, who was caught up in reminiscing, was startled by the javelin that was suddenly stuck in the front wheel of his bicycle. Fortunately, he was riding very slowly, and even if he fell off the seat, his skin would only be sore, before he could crawl off the ground. When I got up, I felt a chill on the back of my head. Then a hand wrapped in a dark red battlesuit stretched out from behind and pulled out the javelin stuck in the wheels of the cart. In Ethan's exclamation that he couldn't shout out, the mysterious man took him up into the air, and landed on the rooftop of a building that looked deserted and dilapidated in a few flashes. Ethan took a closer look at the street and saw there are drug addicts and homeless people lying everywhere. Ethan, who is familiar with the surrounding environment, is worried. Isn't this Hell's Kitchen? Ethan, an employee of Ancestor Handicraft Store. Don't yell and draw attention to yourself. I just want to ask you a few questions. A dull, hoarse voice sounded from behind. When the mysterious man saw Ethan, whose mouth was covered, show an okay gesture, he let him go and asked, "What does the waiter in Hell's Kitchen send you every day?" Ethan turned around and took a few steps back. He looked up and down at the mysterious man who had captured him. His eyes stayed on the short stick he was holding for a moment. He answered truthfully, 3 meals a day, sir. I tried to persuade the boss not to order from Hell's Kitchen, but he didn't take it seriously. The mysterious man turned the stick in his hand in a circle, and his inhuman hearing allowed him to clearly detect the beating frequency of Ethan's heart. He was not lying. Just when he was about to ask again, he heard Ethan's slightly skeptical and excited voice, "Crimson coat, retractable short stick, are you the legendary Night Stalker of Hell's Kitchen?" The flexible rotating short stick stopped for a moment, and Daredevil Matthew, whose identity was revealed, avoided the question without saying a word. He just had some doubts about his ancestor's handicraft shop. Now it seems that even if it has some connection with the underground evil forces in New York, what kind of collusion is not something that the ordinary clerk in front of me can know. After thinking for a while, he continued to ask, "So Ethan, where is your boss?" "Bad boss, didn't you just break that Tony's mask? He obviously promised not to deal with me, so why won't he let me mate with him tonight?" Vanax huddled in bed, complaining resentfully about what a certain man had done. The other 3 people, who were immersed in their respective fields of interest and studying, acted as if they hadn't heard anything. Only Chad couldn't bear her thoughts and said, "If I don't deal with you, it doesn't mean I won't punish you. The boss is not downstairs. Where are you going to deal with Kate? I tell you, this is your punishment." Vanax's mouth immediately pursed into a crescent moon. She turned over and stopped complaining. She just said bitterly, "Damn Tony Stark. Tuck tuck tuck. Tuck tuck tuck." The 4 people on the second floor looked at each other. According to human schedules, there should be no one at this point. What is going on today? Why is there someone knocking on the door again? That Tony Stark must be here again. I'm going to open the door. Vanax got dressed under the covers and jumped out of bed with a bang. She planned to make a suggestion to her boss tomorrow, even if she couldn't mate. Then her bed would have to be moved to the 3rd floor. It didn't matter that she had never been a human being before, but now she lived in the same room with 3 big men every day. No matter how she thought about it, she felt uneasy. The remaining 3 people looked at each other, and the leader Shaq sighed. He didn't even take off his clothes and said helplessly, "Let's go, the boss is busy, we have to watch the stupid bird." Seeing the windows on the 2nd floor light up, Matthew dragged Ethan away from the store with a solemn expression. There must be something dirty in this store that no one knows about, and the boss also knew something about his abilities and made some mistakes. According to the corresponding countermeasures, with his ability to monitor the hearing of 3 streets, he could not hear a single sound in the store. Click! The store door burst open, and a humanoid creature with blood flowing like a tsunami all over its body and a heartbeat as strong as a drum suddenly appeared in Matthew's hearing world. A sense of mortal threat swept through his brain. Just when he was about to make a strategic retreat, I heard a sweet and slightly surprised female voice, "Not Tony Stark? Ethan? Is this your friend? Silly bird." Seeing the short stick stuck on Ethan's neck, Charter said in a tone of hatred, "My friend, Vanax, look carefully, this is obviously kidnapping." "Kidnapping?" Vanax was slightly excited, "Does that mean this is the enemy? Etc., etc." Seeing her expression, Ethan immediately guessed what she wanted to do. Although Daredevil is indeed suspected of kidnapping him, Ethan knows what his starting point is. The latter is no better than Tony's Mark armor. If Vanax touches it, it won't take more than a minute. I will hate the Northwest for a lifetime. So the hostage who was held hostage took the initiative to excuse the kidnapper behind him. Daredevil is not an enemy, and he is not a bad person, Shaq, he just has some trivial misunderstandings about us. Whether it's an enemy or not will be discussed later. The most important thing now is to save you from the hands of this pervert in a tights. In Matthew's hearing world, the blood flow in the speaker's legs suddenly accelerated, and then the short hard alloy stick stuck in Ethan's throat made a chilling sound of breaking, and a gust of wind rushed towards his face. It felt like I was hit head-on by a speeding truck, and my whole body flew out as gently as a rag. Chat, capture him and bring him back. I'll notify the boss. Matthew, who was still in the air, sprayed a mouthful of blood on his mask, and the fishy sweet smell instantly filled his brain. Before he landed, he was picked up by Chat. Seeing his miserable state, the latter said disdainfully, "Weak human being," gently crushed his fists that he fought desperately, and threw him into the small shop that was opened by Vanax while Matthew screamed in extreme pain. A hand suddenly pulled off his mask, revealing a face covered in blood. The sweet voice sounded again, "Oh. It turns out he is a blind man." Chapter 32 We are all partners of justice. Yuri stared at the stupid daredevil Matthew who was kneeling in front of him by 5 people with an unkind look on his face. If being woken up while sleeping in bed would make people have the urge to kill someone, then 2 people in interrupting a conversation while the bed isn't sleeping can leave 2 people wanting to chop it up into mincemeat. He took a deep breath, his golden eyes looked up and down at the daredevil in front of him who had not hummed until now, and said, "Kidnap my employees, disturb my nightlife, and give me a reason not to kill you." The blood on Matthew's face had already condensed into scabs. Hearing this, he raised his head and tossed aside his hair that was wet with sweat beads on his forehead. His cloudy eyes stared at the man in front of him who posed the greatest threat to him. "Damn Kingpin's lackey! Even if you kill me, you can't cover up your dirty soul." Yuri frowned slightly. "Kingpin's lackey? Me? Boss?" Ethan weakly interjected, "Daredevil and us should have some misunderstandings, because Hell's Kitchen often delivers food to us, which leads him to think that we and each other are engaged in some illegal activities. He is actually a good person who specializes in fighting illegal crimes. That's what they say on the internet." When Vanax saw Yuri bowing his head in thought, he quietly walked next to Ethan and asked softly, "What does lackey mean? I don't think the boss likes this word very much." Ethan looked embarrassed. It was impossible to deceive Vanax, because she would definitely find time to search secretly by herself, but it didn't seem possible to tell the truth. Tony just mocked Yuri a little and was deducted. He kicked the visor away to let the irritable little girl know the true meaning of a lackey. He was worried that Daredevil would be beaten into pieces by the furious 5 people. "You know." Ethan racked his brains for words, "Dogs are man's best friend. Daredevil may mean that the boss and Kingpin have a very deep relationship. You are lying to me." Vanax could tell at a glance that he was lying. Stooge was definitely not a nice word to use. Her eyes scratched at Daredevil several times, secretly thinking about when she could teach this weak human being who insulted her boss a profound lesson. Yuri moved a chair and sat down on his own. He looked at Daredevil kneeling on the ground, flipped his wrist and gave him a golden healing light ball. Before the other party had any questions, he activated his psychic ability. "Send him to sleep instantly." Kingpin's real name is Wilson Grant Fisk. He is the largest underworld leader in New York and even the United States. He is thoughtful and intelligent. More than 90.00% of his body is made of muscle. He has amazing strength and can penetrate with his bare hands a wall, and he is also a world-class fighting master, possessing the highest level of human combat effectiveness. In addition, his cane can also emit lasers and smoke, making it difficult for opponents to guard against him. He is known as Kingpin in the underworld, which means mastermind. His underworld network spreads all over the world and controls 70.00% of the underground in the United States. Business, and the notorious Hell's Kitchen is a breeding ground for criminals created by it in order to maintain the apparent peace and stability of social order. "I have an idea." Yuri opened his mouth to attract everyone's attention to himself. "The Kingpin he talks about is the master of the underground world, with eyes and hands reaching the sky. He is not just a gang boss. But to us, he and others they are generally the same, and they are all insignificant members of the more than 70 billion people on Earth. The king of the underworld, if he can do it, we can do it too. The people at the helm of the country under our feet don't want complete peace. They want order and rules. And they don't care at all who the individuals or groups are who make the rules and order, as long as we can feed their greedy pocket, we can secure our seat as rule makers. So everyone, does anyone want to try it?" He was not worried at all that after killing Kingpin, some of his loyal subordinates would recruit his old men to become his enemies. If it were not for the purpose of training the social skills of the 5 shacks so that they could integrate into human society more quickly, the title of Underworld Emperor would be to him it is simply insignificant. Under the control of his mind, few pure-blooded humans in the world can disobey his orders. As the leader of the mutant tribe, I really worry about the children. Vanax, who is the most positive in everything, was the first to speak. She asked excitedly, "Boss, if you become the Underworld Emperor, you can do whatever you want, kill whoever you want, and make whatever money you want. Can you spend it yourself?" Yuri nodded. "You can kill people, but only for enemies who are against you and bad guys who do evil." "Is that so?" The silly bird grinned. "Then can I kill Tony Stark?" Yuri had a dark look on his face. "What kind of hatred or grudges are there? Are you thinking about killing your own son in the Marvel world before you even enter the underground world?" "Cannot." Silly bird snorted twice when he heard this, and said directly, "Then I won't do it." Yuri sighed with hatred, and after telepathy, he realized that this idiot was all blaming Tony for not being able to sleep with him tonight. "Vanax, listen to me. You can teach Tony a lesson, but you must not kill him. Even if the attack is serious, you have to leave him breathing enough for me to rush over and revive him. Tony's Tucker is related to the future survival of the tribe, you must not kill him, this is an order, remember." Seeing Yuri's serious and abnormal expression, Shan Yao had no choice but to reply weakly, "Remember, boss. I want to try." Kate, whose face was still flushed, said softly, "I don't like to be in the public eye. The Underworld Emperor hiding underground may be a very good identity." Yuri nodded. Kate was still reliable. He said happily, "Then it's settled. I will modify Daredevil's memory and shape the 5 of you into righteous people who hate evil and hate evil. Starting from tomorrow night, everyone will follow him and become familiar with the underworld world. Let's learn the basic common sense of human society based on the laws of operation. If you want to learn to fight, you must first learn to be beaten. If you want to control the underworld, you should also start by fighting against the underworld." Kate and Vanax go to the 3rd floor, and the rest go back to their homes and disband. Ethan looked blankly at the 5 people who just went upstairs. The task of replacing the Underworld Emperor, who was so powerful, was decided so hastily by these guys on such an ordinary night. He had no doubt at all whether the 5 Kates had the strength to complete this task, but his mind had not turned around yet, and he wondered what kind of powerful organization he had joined. Here Yuri had finished modifying Matthew's memory and was about to slap him to wake him up from his sleep, but out of the corner of his eye he caught sight of Ethan, who was still in the store. He walked over very kindly and patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't be afraid, Ethan. This is also for your safety. In the future, Kate will become the queen of the underworld, and no blind little person will dare to kidnap you anymore. Don't worry and go home, you have to go to work tomorrow." Ethan squeezed out an ugly smile. "Then I really thank you." Snapped. After all, the slap fell on Matthew's face. Yuri wiped the blood scab on his hand and said with a smile to Daredevil, who woke up, "Matthew, we can't be acquainted without fighting. Shaq and the others will join your operation tomorrow night, please escort Ethan home safely tonight." "No problem, Yuri." Matthew took the hood handed over by Yuri and put it on his head without hesitation. Under Ethan's gaze, as if he had seen a ghost, a dull and hoarse voice sounded, "We are all partners of justice." Chapter 33 Mind Control. Silent all night. Yuri and Silly Cat and Silly Bird kept fighting until Ethan arrived at the store for work. After breakfast, he moved the 2 beds belonging to Kate and Vanax on the 2nd floor to the 3rd floor, finally completely solving Vanax's situation. Of deep resentment. Today your task is to understand and learn the various exploration tools that can be searched online. When I come back, you will see 5 reasonable and feasible Arctic exploration and search plans. After Yuri gave the order, he took the car keys and went out. He is going to Wall Street to invest all the $5,000 billion borrowed from Tony to appreciate it. He gave his plan a very vivid code name called borrowing chickens and laying eggs. Yes, he plans to use all $5,000 billion to purchase shares of Stark Industries. If I remember correctly, the biggest stock price change this year is here, the stock price of Stark Industries after Tony announced the closure of the weapons manufacturing department. After plummeting, arms companies that no longer produce weapons are nothing in the eyes of mortals. Fortunately, Obadiah turned the tide and barely stabilized the stock price through press conferences one after another. However, he was so desperate that when his plan was about to succeed, as a criminal, he was killed by his nephew Tony on the rooftop of his company. No one thought that a playboy, even a notorious genius inventor, could save the building from collapse. After Tony's intentional operation, and with the strong assistance of artificial intelligence Jarvis, Stark Industries' stock price has experienced more than a dozen times of falling to the limit without ever improving even a cent. Under this trend, many media outlets have speculated that Stark Industries is about to face delisting. Of course Yuri knew what Tony's purpose was. He just wanted to take back the scattered shares and strengthen his decision-making power over the company. As we all know, Tony and Yuri are good brothers who share life and death. This was even reflected when SHIELD came to visit, so Tony's is Yuri's, and the 5,000 billion stocks that were originally going to be acquired by Tony were in Yuri's hands. It's the same. Anyway, he has always been a loyal supporter of the former in terms of company operations. Tony, you must be very happy that I believe you so much. Good morning, sir, how may I help you? The lady at the front desk had a sweet smile on her face. She could tell at a glance that the young man looking around was not only handsome, but also must have strong financial resources and a rich family background. Do you have an appointment? Yuri hummed noncommittally. In such a high-priced area of Wall Street, this financial company can actually own an entire building. Its business capabilities must not be much different. His golden eyes were slightly white, and he easily influenced this ordinary human being. Is the boss here? If so, tell me his location. The boss is here. The front desk didn't notice anything was wrong, and generously told Yuri all the information he wanted to know. The top floor is his office. You can take the exclusive elevator to save time. After he finished, he smiled and handed Yuri a gilt black card. Use this to open it. Yuri smiled gently, took the card and said, "Thank you, beautiful lady." Then he looked at the other receptionist who was about to stop the two people from moving. The latter immediately put down his hand that was stretched out in the air, and the confusion on his face turned into a sweet smile from the heart. It is our honor to serve you. A dedicated elevator is a must. The public elevator only one step away is lined with company employees in suits and ties, but the elevator in front of them always moves back and forth between several floors, with no intention of going down to the first floor. In the short period of time Yuri walked from the front desk to the elevator, he had already seen several white-collar workers who had to take the stairs because they could not wait for the elevator. Under the eyes of everyone who were either envious or jealous, he easily opened the exclusive elevator door that had been parked in the lobby on the first floor with his black gold elevator card, walked into the elevator car calmly with two long legs, and finally returned. He did not forget to wave goodbye to the two blonde beauties who had been watching him at the front desk. Ding dong! The elevator stopped slowly on the 17th floor, and the two tightly fitting steel doors slowly opened, revealing the splendid corridor outside and the burly bodyguards in black suits. One of them looked Yuri up and down, then stretched out his hand to stop him. "Sir, the company's board of directors is convening. Please move to the reception room." Yuri glanced at the opponent's bulging waist, not noticing even the slightest threat. His eyes turned completely white, and his powerful spiritual power instantly controlled everyone present. "Take me to where the directors are meeting." The bodyguard in black immediately retracted the hand that was originally holding Yuri back and took the lead towards the end of the corridor. His tone was full of obedience and respect. "Please come this way." Yuri Chiron followed him to a carved door and watched as the other party pressed his finger on a certain position to unlock it. Click! The heavy conference room door slowly opened, and the noise of the board of directors slipped out through the crack in the door. Yuri strode into the conference room amidst everyone's surprised eyes. Before the door was closed, he heard a fat, middle-aged, greasy man sitting almost at the end ask, "Where did this guy come from? Did any of you invite me?" Click! The door was closed and locked again. Yuri looked around at the group of financial tycoons with different expressions on the huge round table, and said straight to the point, "Before this, I didn't know any of you, but from now on, you have been selected as I completed the execution of a project. With all due respect, sir." A man who was very high up but still some distance away from the chairman took a deep puff of the cigar on his fingertips. Under Yuri's gaze, he slowly exhaled a puff of light blue smoke and said with an arrogant and disdainful expression, "Although I don't know what method you used to get our bodyguards to open the door to the board of directors for you, but why do you think that everyone here will obey your orders like the group of idiots outside the door and help you complete your mission? Where's that damn project?" By this, Yuri pointed at his eyes that turned white instantly, easily taking over the souls and consciousness of the 26 shareholders present in this financial company. The white-haired old man sitting at the top who had been silent silently gave up his seat to Yuri. Take out a new wine glass and carefully fill it with half a glass of crystal clear wine. Yuri snapped his fingers, and his pure white eyes looked around all the shareholders again. From now on, you will buy Stark Industries shares for me with all your strength, use all the public resources that the company can use, and use every conceivable method or a trick, to convert all the checks worth $5,000 billion in my hand into Stark Industries stocks in the shortest possible time. If you want to get the most shares, I'm afraid it will take some time, sir. The man with the eyes on the right was operating on the computer, raised his head and said, 1 week, we need 1 week. Yuri drank all the wine in the glass in one gulp. The body of the glass made a pleasant sound when it collided with the long solid wood table. He stood up and walked towards the door of the conference room. 1 week is a completely acceptable time, and besides. He pointed at the 2 shareholders who had spoken just now and smiled, if there is some gap in funds, let them contribute some selflessly. I believe they are very generous people, right? Chapter 34 Ginger. It was already after 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I came out of Wall Street, and a lot of time was wasted mainly on signing various contracts and procedures. Yuri drove the car and randomly found a large-scale buffet restaurant on the street. Under the eyes of the waiter who had seen a ghost, he refreshed all kinds of meat in the dining area for a full 13 times by himself. Finally, I was sent out of the store with a nod and bow by the store owner and received coupons for several other buffet restaurants. Driving aimlessly around the streets, although what he saw had already appeared in his memory, after seeing it with his own eyes, he still couldn't help but marvel at the speed of human evolution, from monkeys with thick hair and blood to well-dressed people. Civilized people, they actually only spent tens of thousands of years, and the souls under their weak bodies grew even faster. No wonder the death of half of the population caused the awakening of the gods in the center of the earth. As he was walking, he was suddenly attracted by a poster posted on the outer wall of a movie theater. Ginger, the star of Shadow Warriors, Time Journey, will arrive in New York on the 24th of this month. Haha. Yuri took out his phone and took a look at it. His golden eyes were filled with anticipation. What a coincidence, Ginger. I originally planned to go to Bollywood to find you. Ginger, one of the Eternals descended on the earth. He can launch powerful energy bombs from his fingers. After a short period of power accumulation, he can rub his hands together to create a super large energy ball that is as powerful as a cannonball. He has a faster attack frequency and large attack range. Often hiding behind the steel fortress of Phastos for stand-up output, causing a lot of damage to the former mutants. After all the mutants were sealed or killed, the 10-man team of the Eternals announced their disbandment. Ginger left the world and became obsessed with acting and making movies. Due to the immortality of the Eternals, he had to build the entire family tree alone. Until now this generation should already be the great-great-grandson of the original self. Yuri quickly browsed through the memories in his mind, wishing he could move back to the small shop immediately, and immediately search the internet for his specific whereabouts. At least % of the blood debt of the mutant tribe will fall on this guy, and now he has gone to his own territory. Kill it no matter what. Taking a deep breath to calm down the restlessness in his heart, he turned the steering wheel sharply, stepped on the accelerator and drove towards the store. When he opened the store door, the first thing Yuri saw was 5 humanoid mutants standing in a row, each with a pile of paper covered with writing. Vanax, who was at the top of the queue, stretched out the 3 pieces of paper with a proud face, and complained in an inexplicable tone, "Boss, why are you coming back so slowly? We have lunch. I made the plan a while ago, and I have been waiting for you to come back for approval all afternoon." Yuri ignored her, and walked past the 5 people and took their searching for compatriots proposals one by one. He nodded to Ethan, who was only exposed behind the counter and hidden behind the books, and walked upstairs quickly. Said, "You 5, come with me, there is something very important that I need to tell you." The 5 shacks looked at each other in confusion. Although they were full of doubts, they all followed without saying a word. Ethan behind the counter put down his book and touched his shiny forehead. He deliberately borrowed a few books on company management and manpower deployment from the next door today, but seeing that he had only read dozens of pages, he was very envious of 5 books. Rongwi's learning ability was so envious that he even had low self-esteem. He pushed up his eyes that had fallen to the tip of his nose, and he shook his head and sighed sincerely, "I'm old." The 3rd floor of the shop. Yuri quickly turned on the computer, opened the search engine under the watchful eyes of the 5 shacks, and entered keywords such as Bollywood, Shadow Warriors, Ginger, schedule, etc. There was a picture of a huge motorcycle on it. The poster came into view. Yuri clicked on the picture to enlarge it. As the 5 people behind him began to breathe heavier, he rotated the seat 180 degrees so that he was facing the 5 people. Looking at their hatred-filled eyes, he nodded with satisfaction and said, "After wiping us all out, the Eternals integrated into human society and hid themselves. I have killed their leader Ajak and their leader of wisdom, Fasto. Si, the mind controller druid, the speedster Mockery, and the person you see is the sharpshooter hidden in human society Ginge. In the past endless years, he has caused immeasurable harm to our tribe. Tens of thousands of our compatriots have died at the hands of this despicable villain who only knows how to hide in a turtle shell and carry out sneak attacks. Now, although our number is very few, but with my help, you have all improved 1,000 times compared to before you were sealed. Whether it is recovery power, soul strength, speed, or the powerful weapons I have now, you are enough to face one-on-one the remaining 6 Eternals of hard steel." Boss Shaq, the calmest one, spoke first this time. His voice was slightly trembling with excitement, and all the muscles in his body were twitching uncontrollably. "Where is he? I can't wait to kill him right away." "Got it." When Yuri heard this, he gave him a hard blow. He grabbed Shaq, who was as strong as a bear, by his ears, and dragged the fool, whose emotions had taken over his mind, to the computer screen. "Where is it?" "What? Do you want me to tell you everything? You can't see the big words on the computer screen, right?" Shaq finished reading the content on the screen with grinning teeth. "It is reported that Ginger will arrive in New York on the evening of the 24th. After staying at the Serena Hotel for one night, the next day will start at, in the morning. Promotional event for the new game Shadow Warriors, Journey Through Time." I saw it. Although Shaq was in pain, he did not dare to break away from Yuri's right hand holding his ear no matter what. He could only plead for mercy. "Boss, I was wrong. I really see it now." "Humph." Thanks to the mutant's powerful physique, Yuri grabbed Shaq's ear and yanked it back. The huge force did not tear off this dispensable part, but instead used it to drive the entire main body and hit it hard on the back. On wall panels. The remaining 4 Vanax ignored Shaq's embarrassed appearance at all, and all stared at Yuri with piercing eyes, waiting for him to give his next order. "Today is the 24th. Yuri glanced at Shaq, who was standing in a row with his head shrinking. The latter immediately put down his right hand that was rubbing his ear and looked like he was listening attentively. "As the saying goes, you can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. We definitely can't take revenge on Ginge before he enters the hotel. Although we will definitely succeed in achieving our goal, the impact will be too great and is not in line with our principle of keeping a low profile. So my plan postpone tonight's plan for the 5 of you to learn from Daredevil to fight crime. After 12 o'clock, we will sneak into the hotel and kill Ginger with lightning speed." Seeing that no one had any objections, he ordered Chat, who had the best overall performance, "Go to Hell's Kitchen to find the Mercado law firm and tell Matthew to be a partner in justice with him tomorrow night." After thinking that there were no omissions, he asked the remaining 4 people to adjust their status, while he began to prepare weapons and equipment for tonight's revenge operation. Chapter 35 Don't Feel Lonely. Yuri knows very well what the Eternal's single combat effectiveness is. Except for One Punch Man's Gilgamesh, the weakened Marvel Superman Igris, and the Valkyrie Tina with full melee abilities, the remaining 7 guys can't even defeat a mutant race alone. None. The reason why the Eternals were able to complete the cleansing and sealing of the mutants did not rely on their powerful single combat capabilities, but on the triangular spacecraft Tama they boarded when they landed on Earth. Yuri has never entered the Tamas so far because he knows that there is a statue of Alyssum, the supreme observer of the universe, enshrined inside. Although he doesn't know how much connection it has with the real owner, he would rather believe it or not, in case it attracts without his gaze, not only himself and the frozen mutant races, but also the Earth are in danger of being completely destroyed. When he killed Ajak and absorbed his abilities, Yuri also kept a respectful distance from the celestial sphere in his body that was used to communicate with Elitham. He was worried that a small mistake on his part would bring disaster to the tribe. Time always passes quickly. After watching Ethan come home from get off work carrying a book, Yuri immediately closed the store door and returned to the 3rd floor. With a wave of his hand, a pile of equipment with patterns on the surface appeared on the simple workbench. He picked up a wrist guard and tapped it lightly on his wrist. After the golden lines flowed, it fit perfectly on you at the wrist. I twisted my fist a few times without feeling any stumbling. With a slight shake, a huge light shield that could completely cover Shaq appeared out of thin air. Vanax curiously poked it with his finger, and small ripples appeared in the touched area. Yuri glared her back and introduced to everyone, after my 3 transformations, you should be able to clearly feel a special energy appearing in your body. It can heal your injuries, speed up your speed, and strengthen you. The soul can also act on these equipments and activate their special functions. This is the wrist guard. I have engraved shield magic on it. After activation, it can summon a huge energy shield like this. We all know that Ginger's energy bomb is very powerful. It can resist attacks for you. This is the knee pad. Unfortunately, time is limited. I originally wanted to make you some leggings. After activation, it can speed up your movement for a short period of time, and you can dodge in time when there is no time to hold up the shield. These are force depleting shoes, and I know your power. They are all extremely powerful. In your eyes, human building materials are no different from paper. But in order to keep a low profile, we must not leave too many traces on the scene. It can offset the power acting on the earth. Activate it once before taking action. The force effect lasts for 10 minutes, this is the arm guard. By the time everyone got used to the equipment, it was already 11:30. Mainly because these 2 fools, Vanax and Kate, kept asking questions, and even the 3 Shaqs, who were not very nervous at first, started to fight. Unable to react in advance, Yuri had to spend time mobilizing them before the war to boost their morale again. Hey! It's just a small ring. When you finish this fight, you will know how vulnerable the nightmare of the past is to you now. The action begins. After a uniform yes, the 6 mutants, including Yuri, nodded slightly. The forehead protectors stuck in front of their eyebrows covered their entire heads for a few breaths, and then everyone stepped forward. After a while of golden light, there was no more sound when walking around. With a wave of Yuri's hand, the ceiling on the 3rd floor suddenly opened, and the 6 people flexed their legs and jumped to the roof of the Old Man Rogers bookstore next door. After a few ups and downs, the 6 figures disappeared in the thick night. Unable to sleep, the old man lying on the bed watching the dark clouds caught sight of a figure passing by the window. Curled his lips for no reason, turned over and murmured, "How do you say that? The moon is dark and the wind is high, murder and arson, God." The presidential suite on the highest floor of Salina Hotel. Ginger sent away his assistant Karen who had arranged tomorrow's publicity schedule. He turned off the lights and stood alone in front of the huge glass window in a daze. He had lived for too long, excluding the days when he fought side by side with his partners in 7,000 years. He spent 2,000 to 3,000 years wandering alone. Sometimes immortality is not a gift, but it can also become a cruel curse. He made many human friends, but without exception, they all grew old under his watch. The same was true for Karen. The young and handsome boy back then has now become a fat man with dark circles under his eyes that cannot be removed. Years, maybe after more than 10 years, he will leave me. Please sigh. Ginge rubbed his face fiercely. He didn't know what happened today. He always felt uneasy. Could it be that he had been separated from his comrades for too long and missed him? He did not notice that in the originally empty living room of the suite, 6 uninvited guests appeared out of thin air, wearing scattered armor and their entire heads covered by helmets. Yuri inhaled gently to relieve the consumption caused by excessive use of space power. It was still a bit reluctant to deliver 6 people at once, but fortunately it was successful, and this high-level energy fluctuation did not attract the attention of the target person. Waving their hands, the 6 people dispersed evenly and slowly approached Ginge, who was covering his face and exuding a decadent aura. During the thousands of years of hunting, every mutant who could survive to this day was doing well. He had learned to restrain and even hide his murderous intentions towards his prey, which led to the fact that it wasn't until the 6 of them got within 10 steps of Ginge that the other party noticed anything was wrong. He put down his hand, and the sharp eyesight of the sharpshooter has not weakened due to not participating in the battle for a long time. He saw the 6 guys slowly approaching behind him from the reflection of the glass almost instantly. Before he had time to think, a bright golden spots of light converged on his fingertips, and at the same moment, the 5 of Shaq, who knew that they had been exposed, activated all the equipment in their bodies in no particular order, and rushed forward in an instant. The acceleration of knee pads, the increase of arm pads, the puncture of fist gloves, the attenuation of combat boots. The energy ball on Ginge's fingertips had just condensed to the size of a peanut, but 5 fists packed with surging power had already approached him within a punch. Yuri, who had not made any movement after waving his hands, was shaking slightly at this moment, He activated the energy shield on his wrist and stood it in front of him, blocking the hot blood that splattered everywhere in the next second. The 5 shacks hit the target and froze in place. They raised their heads, and what they saw was Jinj with a painful face and the golden energy ball in his hand that was gradually extinguishing. Yuri put away the energy shield, and Shiran walked to each of his unbelievable compatriots. Dozens of blue-black transmission tubes were drawn out from his back and penetrated deeply into the people who opened their mouths and wanted to say something. Inside Jinji's body. "We are mutants." Yuri leaned close to his ear, and a dangerous smile appeared on his handsome face under the helmet. "Don't feel lonely, because you are the 5th. Chapter 36 The Birth of the Green Goblin. People who kill people are not scary. What's scary is the person who can clean up the murder scene after the murder. After confirming that it was impossible to find even a single body hair at the scene, Yuri teleported to his assistant Karen's room based on Ginger's memory. His spiritual power surged out, and he carefully fabricated a sad farewell and instructions for him. "Don't tell anyone false memory." Returning to Ginger's presidential suite again, he just pretended not to see the eyes of the 5 shacks full of desire to confide. After putting Ginger's body into the black ball, the 6 of them held hands, and a faint blue light flashed. Afterwards, deathly silence returned to the presidential suite. Yuri led the way, and the 6 of them walked around in a long circle in New York City at 1 o'clock in the morning before returning to the commercial street where the shop was located. They jumped into the top ceiling that had been opened in advance and did not wait for it to close completely. The 5 people scrambled to restore the helmet to the forward protection mode. "He died like that?" Van X expressed disbelief. "He didn't even fire out the energy bomb." Kate wondered if she was playing too fast. "Just one punch, just one punch from each of us." Tiger lamented the shooter's crispy skin. "Are we already this powerful?" Chat fell into deep self-doubt. "Aren't the Eternals not that good either?" Shaq makes sure he's still grounded. Yuri took off his equipment one by one and threw them on the workbench. After he was done, he sat down cross-legged and returned from the human form to the muscular mutant true body. "Shut up, everyone, I will personalize it first." The mutant race has an evolutionary ability that even the gods cannot control. As a biological group of flesh and blood, they usually complete evolution in a long iteration, but as the leader of the mutant race, Yuri is the best among the best. During the long battle, he actively evolved the transmission tube behind his back, which can absorb the enemy's abilities and assimilate them into his own body, thereby making himself a more perfect and powerful existence. God knows how uncomfortable Yuri felt on the way back. The superpower from Jinji was like a ball of fire, constantly burning Yuri, who restrained himself. The mysterious lines were like savage mad bulls running rampant, but in the end, it was defeated by Yuri, who had mastered his own control. Now, he finally doesn't have to endure it anymore. The golden lines seemed to have a life of their own. They roamed Yuri's skin, flesh, bones, and meridians. Under the coordination of the most powerful life energy in his body, they quickly transformed Yuri's body into his own territory. The 5 shacks looked anxiously at Yuri, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, his body slowly shrinking. The tough filamentous muscles became tighter and stronger in a few breaths, and the terrifying 4 eyes slowly shrank. The 2 came close and merged, and after a surge of flesh and blood, a bright golden light with vertical eyes without a trace of white came out from Yuri's eyebrows. After that, the evolution of the body surface came to an end, but inside the body the transformation continues. Countless golden lines gathered on Yuri's hands, arms, and between his eyebrows. They penetrated into the flesh and bones and firmly imprinted themselves on them. Even the wandering soul was covered with golden light. Inexplicably, Yuri felt that it was gradually becoming stronger. 2 minutes later, Yuri, who had completed his evolution, stood in front of the dressing mirror on the 3rd floor and admired his new mutant body, streamlined muscle lines, slender and powerful limbs, projected on the ground by the light. The shadow on his body is no different from a normal human being. Now that he has transformed into a human form, he only needs to pay attention to his metallic green-gold skin and the mysterious vertical eyes between his eyebrows. Congratulations to the boss for taking this further. The 5 shacks looked feverishly at the humanoid leader in front of them, who was a bit small for most mutants. Their keen senses could detect the fatal danger within the period of storage. Only the stupid bird glanced at a huge lump from time to time. It was indescribable, with a hint of obsessed desire in his fanatical eyes. Yuri turned around, and when he saw her look like this, his face instantly turned into black lines. Kate glanced disdainfully at the Ludvanex, and very considerately went to get some clothes to help Yuri put on. When everyone lined up again, Yuri stared at them and asked, "Do you still think the Eternals are strong?" Before the 5 people could answer, he continued, "We are the most powerful predators on this planet, we are the protectors of the origin of all civilizations in the universe, we are creatures that even the Creator is afraid of. Species mutant race. I have noticed that some huge changes are coming. It will affect the entire universe, and the impact it will have can even be said to change the world. We wake up at the right time, and we are born to leave a deep mark on this new stage. In order to survive and excel, we must keep evolving, keep moving forward, and keep getting stronger. The Eternals on Earth are just the beginning. Our goal is to kill all Eternals in the universe. The great journey has just begun." At the same time, the top floor of Osborne Tower. The expression on Norman Osborn's face, who had just put down the phone, gradually became ferocious. "Damn Tony Stark! Connors, how dare you betray me?" Just now, the head of the military department personally called him, claiming that with the help of Connors, the real genius Tony Stark had developed a restoration that could be called a cross-era product. The drug, after experiments, can fully achieve the effect of curing serious injuries in a short period of time. It is certain that once put into use, it will greatly reduce the number of soldier deaths on the battlefield. It is different from the super soldier serum that improves the combatability of a single body. It heals. The potion improved the combat capability of the entire legion in a disguised form. After discussions at the meeting, the military bosses decided to reduce financial support and policy tilt for Osborn's super soldier serum project. After all, compared to an unfinished product that has yet to see results, a practical healing agent is more important. It can impress the military officers who always focus on practicality. Norman frantically smashed everything that could be picked up in the office. The super soldier serum he personally hosted was not only a cooperation project with the military, but also his hope of curing the genetic disease in his family. You are only one step away from success, and victory is clearly within sight. Why did you, Connors, betray me and hand over the research results to that playboy Tony Stark? Anger, unwillingness, fear. Norman suddenly stopped and an extremely bold idea came to his mind. Connors transformed into a lizard man by injecting a potion, but it may be because of this that he developed a potion that can perfectly regenerate severed limbs. The super soldier serum has also reached the final step. If I learn from Connors, can I also develop a truly harmless serum after injection? This idea quickly took root in his mind, sprouted branches and leaves, and soon formed a towering tree that covered all other thoughts. Norman ran to the laboratory, completed a series of preparations for the serum injection under the horrified gaze of the staff on duty, and then lay directly into the replica of the life cabin. Threads of green smoke quickly enveloped Norman in the glass cabin, and heart-rending screams immediately rang out in the airtight life cabin. I don't know how long it took, but the screams gradually replaced the penetrating evil smile, and the alloy the built hatch was kicked open, and a man with a ferocious expression and evil eyes walked out of Norman Osborn. Chapter 37 Press Conference. After killing Ginge, everyone in Yuri's shop returned to a peaceful life. Ethan clocked in and got off work every day. The 5 Shack mastered the energy release ability newly given by Yuri during the day, and followed yet at night. The demons join forces to fight crime in Hell's Kitchen next door. During this period, Tony came to his door once. The reason was that the artificial intelligence Jarvis discovered the fact that Yuri had used borrowed money to acquire Stark Industries stocks. The two had a wonderful fight under the witness of Ethan and others. The war of words ended with the bottom line of Yuri shall not interfere with the company's operations for no reason after taking control of the shares and will always support Tony's decisions about the company, which made a man whose mustache began to twitch with anger give up his pursuit of stocks. 7 days later, the financial company where Yuri controlled all the top executives converted a total of $5,023 billion into Stark Industries stock. After a comprehensive evaluation, Yuri held about 18% of the shares, which was Stark, a veritable major shareholder of the industry. This was done very well. In order to express his gratitude, Yuri took the initiative to use his life energy to nurse them back to health, which was regarded as paying for the other party's consumption of various resources and connections during the week. After Tony learned the news, he immediately began to promote the rebirth potion. The overwhelming advertisements and videos of various disabled volunteers regaining their lives became popular throughout the Lighthouse country in just a few days. After the military came out to take the stand, Dozens of countries around the world have unilaterally initiated massive orders to the yet-to-be formally established Rebirth pharmaceutical company that are estimated to be impossible to produce in several years. Boss, how are you? Ethan smoothed back the few hairs on his head and nervously adjusted the tie around his neck. He pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose and waited for Yuri's response rather uneasily, because he was worried about himself. He was extremely unconfident in the company's management level. After discussing with Yuri, he decided to become the agent for the 18% of Stark shares, while Yuri himself took over the role of Rebirth Pharmaceutical Company. Yuri gently smoothed the small wrinkles on his shoulders, carefully looked up and down, then smiled and said, "Ethan, I picked this outfit myself, you should be somewhat confident in my aesthetics. Look. It goes up nice, slim fit and low profile." At this time, the 5 shacks filed out of the stairs. Compared with before, their temperaments had changed a lot. To put it simply, they behaved more like humans rather than untamed beasts. The 3 of them, the male mutants, showed their might in black suits, while the 2 female mutants wore shawl dresses that highlighted their proud figures and beautiful faces. "Boss, it's time for us to go." Shaq raised his hand to look at the time on the watch, and put the black sunglasses on his breast pocket on his face. Tiger and Chet stood next to Ethan, and Shaq opened the small window for Yuri. The door of the shop. Today the roles of the 5 people are bodyguards and female companions. Ethan is assigned 2 bodyguards, while Yuri has 2 female companions. The car was friendly sponsored by the cheap dad who kicked him out of the house at the beginning. Yuri looked around and saw that it looked like the car he was driven out of. Sure enough, after opening the car door, cheap daddy Rob Ambrosius was looking at him with a glass of red wine in his hand with approval. "Get in the car, my outstanding son, you are the fastest in the history of the family to complete a business from scratch. That one, your mother and I are truly proud of you." Yuri was too lazy to talk to him. After getting in the car, he just hugged the cheap lady sitting in the passenger seat gently, and then hugged him in front of his father, without any intention of taking him seriously. "Ha ha ha." Cheap Mother Shaw gently covered her mouth, and her graceful and luxurious temperament was released like a tide when she frowned and smiled. She turned around and looked at Rob, who had a black line on his face, and mocked mercilessly, "It seems that my son is still giving birth to you. I'm angry, my dear Robert." Cough cough. Rob cleared his throat and placed the wine glass on the tray. The smooth driving of the car prevented it from causing even a single ripple. He looked at Yuri and his expression suddenly became serious. "Yuri, I admit that I cheated on you not long ago. What you did was a bit sudden, but your grandfather, me and the rest of the family came here this way." Yuri glanced at him and nodded nonchalantly, "I know, actually I don't mean to blame you. I just want to know if there are any secret rules in the Ambrosius family that I don't know about. You know, I don't really like this feeling of being kept in the dark and then passively accepting it." Rob's eyes flickered a few times. And he glanced at Vanax and Kate in Yuri's arms without trace. "There are indeed some more, but these things are a long story, and I hope to learn them in detail in the study. Tell you everything you need to know." Yuri raised his eyebrows. He knew that the family he entered by mistake was abnormal. It was a so-called wealthy family that died in 3 generations. How could there be a single lineage like Ambrosius, and the inheritance? Everyone is still keen on seeking death, but everyone is blessed with great luck, and there is an evil family that cannot die no matter what they encounter. Of course, except for the unlucky guy Yuri Ambrosius. Who made him be targeted by himself, the leader of a mutant race that originated before human history. After clarifying the conflict, the atmosphere in the car quickly returned to normal. "I could only say that Cheap Mom was worthy of being a noble lady." In a few words, the topic was directed to the upcoming press conference, and Yuri naturally blended in. Although the golden eyes of the Sun character aroused doubts between the 2 of them, Yuri used his psychic powers to quickly make them accept the setting that a sun should be like this. The car quickly drove into the venue, which was located in Stark Tower. Tony meant that the opening ceremony of the new company and the replacement of the weapons department by the Stark Energy department should be done at once. Yuri thought this was good, so he simply left it all to Tony. The car door opened, and Yuri took the initiative to get out of the car and pick up his mother. As expected, media from all walks of life quickly swarmed in and took photos frantically. Now their understanding of Yuri is still limited to the next successor of the Ambrosius family. Level. Just when they were about to prepare a press release for him titled "Mother is Kind and Son is Filial," a noble son of a wealthy family opened the door for his mother in person. They saw Yuri turning around and being directly hit by 2 people who could be called The enchanting beauty crossed her arms from left to right. Click! 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 More violent shutter sounds came like a flood, and a series of various weird titles such as New York's Newest Playboy, The Tragedy of the Ambrosius Family, The Fallen Dutiful Son of a Rich Family appeared like fountains one after another, overwhelming everyone. Can't hold it down. All the reporters' faces were filled with excitement. This is more worthy of reporting than a loving mother and a filial son. At this moment, Yuri's very familiar voice came from the broadcast in the lobby on the first floor of Stark Tower. The artificial intelligence Jarvis said in a sonorous and powerful voice. Ladies and gentlemen, the press conference will officially begin in half an hour. Please take your seats. Our protagonist will appear soon. Chapter 38 The Green Goblin. Yuri found Tony, who was retouching his makeup backstage. After the latter was discovered, he immediately wanted the makeup artist to stop this slightly embarrassing behavior, but under the death gaze of Pepper, he still sat still. After sitting down, his naughty mustache twitched a few times. Tony looked at Yuri in the mirror and said, "When you grow up in a few years, you will have to use makeup to make yourself look younger like me." "Excuse me." Yuri said hello to Pepper beside him, and then smiled harmlessly at Tony and said, "As long as I want, I can keep the appearance you see now before I die of old age." "Oh." Tony shrugged, trying to make his expression reflected in the mirror look less jealous. "That's really too bad." "That would be awesome." Pepper, who was responsible for supervising Tony's makeup application, immediately lit up when he heard this, staring at Yuri's golden eyes with anticipation. "No woman can resist the temptation of ageless appearance," she said incoherently. Asked, "Is that true? I mean, Mr. Yuri, have you developed such a drug? When will it be put into production?" Yuri looked at the jealous Tony and smiled. He patted his chest and assured Pepper, "If one day I really develop such a product, you will definitely be the first to hear the news." Pepper wanted to talk to Yuri a few more words, but was pulled aside by Tony, who was finally freed from the makeup artist's hands. The former playboy spoke with a scumbag tone, "You will always be mine. CEO, Pepper, whether you're getting older or not." Yuri was a gentleman and gave them a quiet environment, but Pepper finally pushed away Tony, who lowered his head a little bit. She smiled sheepishly at Yuri, who had been observing and studying seriously, and straightened her clothes. He ran out like a thief with his hair behind him. "What are you still doing standing here?" Tony glared at Yuri with great dissatisfaction. The main reason was that none of the 5 Kates were here. Tony, who was at home, felt that he could do it again. "You should just go out quietly just now, instead of standing there like you haven't seen anything before. Look at it like a fool in the world." "Haha." Yuri walked into Tony, tapped his slender fingers gently on his chest, and felt a gentle life energy instantly. "My dear Tony, the reason I came to see you is to help you make further progress in the research and development of microreactors." When his fingers left Tony's chest, traces of black blood seeped out from his pores, condensing into a fist-sized blood ball in the air. Tony touched his chest and let out a long sigh of relief. He glanced at Yuri with gratitude, and then said arrogantly, "I don't think you can point fingers at me in this field." Yuri pinched the blood cell and easily extracted the palladium element from it. The total amount is so small that it cannot be found without a microscope. In fact, I am just a messenger. The one who really guides you is your father, Howard Stark." Tony's face immediately darkened. "Yuri, it's not fun to make fun of my parents." Throwing the blood cells into the trash can, Yuri patted Tony on the shoulder. "You know, I took away those instruments in the underground laboratory, and I got some interesting things from them. Through some not-so-scientific means, I got some information left by your father. The Allies were defeated in the war 70 years ago, leaving behind a lot of advanced black technologies, a large part of which were absorbed by the Allies. Howard was the main researcher on many projects. The first-generation reactor on the top of the Stark Tower, the unfinished anti-gravity car, they all come from an infinite and mysterious energy body, the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Etc., etc." Tony stopped Yuri. "Are you saying that all my father's research came from the defeated Allies?" "It does not matter." Yuri waved his hand and continued. "I learned that your father discovered a new element that can completely replace the palladium element you are using now. It is harmless and pollution-free, and it can also increase the energy of the reactor by several amounts. Level." Tony sat on the chair leisurely. He looked at Yuri. "Editor, you continue to make up. The palladium element is irreplaceable in the reactor. Besides, Even if there really is the element you mentioned, why don't father tell me directly? Yuri raised his hand and looked at the time. There were still more than 10 minutes before the official start of the press conference. He pointed at his watch and chose to keep the story short. Your father's research is under the supervision of the government, and you know very well that the lighthouse state what kind of people are those people? If they master this element, they will not think of world peace, but world domination. If I let you know, it means letting everyone know. Okay. Tony shrugged, temporarily accepting the reason why his father didn't tell him, but then he had a new question. Since the new elements have been discovered, haven't they been produced and preserved? No. Yuri shook his head and pointed at his brain. I have to admit that Stark is a very smart person. You knocked out the microreactor in the cave, and your father deduced it out of thin air under heavy surveillance. A new element with endless potential. I accept your compliment. Tony stooped down like an English gentleman and stared into Yuri's eyes. I don't believe that with your character, you would tell me this information for free. Indeed. Yuri saw clearly and frankly stated his needs. I want to participate in the entire manufacturing process of the new element reactor and the research and development of the Mark armor. Tony frowned and looked Yuri up and down to know what he was really thinking. You shouldn't need a battle armor to enhance your combat power, right? I won't even make any armor other than steam armor. I just need the level of technology contained in it to improve some of my abilities. Yuri raised his hand and looked at the time again. There are still 5 minutes until the press conference officially starts. Tony, the information is hidden in the Howard relics you got from S.H.I.E.L.D. You must have seen the videotape, right? The new element is on the table behind your father. Ladies and gentlemen. Jarvis's impassioned voice sounded in the hall. Energy and medical care are two areas with unlimited potential in the New World, and Stark Industries and Rebirth Pharmaceuticals are the well-deserved leaders of the New World. Today is a historic day, the beginning of a new era. Let us invite today's protagonist, Tuo. Boom. 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 The street outside the building was shattered by several sudden pumpkin-shaped bombs. The shock wave carried broken glass and smashed into the crowd, causing almost some panic. There is only one protagonist today. A horrifying laugh came from the sky, and a green armored man with a flying machine swooped down. That's me, the Green Goblin. Chapter 39 Tony and Peter. After all, Norman was defeated by the dark side of his heart, and became the first generation of Green Goblins after putting on a hideous and terrifying green suit. But the difference from the original plot is that the current Green Goblin has not been pressured by the directors of Osborne Company. So when he first appeared in the public eye, he did not kill all the directors and then leave, but took the Connor's anger at betrayal and jealousy of Tony descended on the press conference at this moment. Destroy them all. Pumpkin bombs dropped from high altitude one by one, and were accurately thrown into the participants who were scrambling to escape from Stark Tower. After several deafening explosions, some people lost their lives because they were too close. And more people were knocked to the ground by the aftermath, suffering some minor or serious injuries. GGG. After being blackened, Norman installed 2 downward-facing loudspeakers on the aircraft in an extremely coquettish way, so that everything he said could be heard by everyone present. Tony Stark. You. Despicable and shameless evil thief, you stole the rebirth potion that originally belonged to me, today I must kill you. Tony. Pepper, who hurried over, looked at Tony with a puzzled look on his face, while the latter looked at Yuri with the same expression. Didn't you make the rebirth potion? Why did the guy outside say it was something that originally belonged to him? He is at Connors. No. Yuri dragged Tony to the elevator and said, Connors is dead. The potion that belongs to the guy outside should be the lizard potion developed by Connors. There are too many people paying attention here, and I can't take action. Go put on your Mark armor. After all, this is your press conference, it will be difficult to explain to the outside world if there are too many casualties. Well, in the end it's up to me to turn the tide. Tony walked into the exclusive elevator and told the ubiquitous artificial intelligence Jarvis, start to activate Mark 4, I want to put it on in the shortest possible time. The elevator door slowly closed, and Shaq, who was in a black suit and black sunglasses, came over with Vanex and Kate. Boss, Tiger and Chat will be responsible for ensuring the safety of Ethan and Ambrosius. Do you want to save those ordinary people outside? Under Pepper's disbelieving gaze, Yuri said with an expression that had nothing to do with him, no need, humans have their own police and soldiers to protect them, we just need to watch all this happen, remaining hands off is the most appropriate option. Before Pepper could speak, he added, Tony is busy transforming to fight that green goblin flying in the sky. Pepper, you can organize people to do something for the ordinary people lying on the ground who are dying of injuries. What? I think taking out part of the rebirth potion is a good choice. Not only can it save their lives, but it can also take advantage of this wave of terrorist attacks to create a wave of free advertising for the potion. Pepper's expression changed several times, and finally gave Yuri a complicated look and turned to leave. As Tony's most considerate CEO, she knew very well how powerful Yuri's bodyguards were. If they participated in the battle, no matter what, they would at least prevent the annoying guy above his head from attacking ordinary people, but he stopped the bodyguards from asking for help, but then gave himself a practical rescue plan. This gave her a strange feeling, as if Yuri was deliberately staying out of it. Tony ran to the prepared Mark IV on the dressing table, and absorbed Yuri's steam armor-wearing concept. Now it only takes a few seconds to put on the armor. And he no longer has to stand in a fixed position and wait. The robotic arm is assembled part by part. He only needs to walk in, turn around, put the Mark IV on his body like clothes, and then the armor will automatically close and close. When the virtual display on the mask lights up, he can activate flight mode and fly straight into the sky. The best one has to be Tony Stark. Not leaving the ceiling that Jarvis had opened earlier, he insisted on smashing the tempered glass that served as the wall with his head, using countless broken glass shards that shone brightly in the sunlight as special effects for him to join the battlefield. Wow! A familiar tights with spider webs leaped in front of him. The little spider with a broken mouth shot webs one by one from the wrist, and precisely stuck to the scattered pumpkin bombs. Throw them into the empty sky before exploding. While the Green Goblin was replenishing his ammunition, he once again swung up to Tony in his armor. I thought I saw you rushing out of Stark Tower. Yes, that's right, you made that big hole mark. So, you are Mr. Tony Stark, right? Tony used a palm cannon to destroy a pumpkin bomb flying towards here in advance. The artificial intelligence Jarvis activated the small tracking missile on the shoulder of the suit, easily intercepting all the bombs falling to the ground. He stood still and output left and right. The Green Goblin jumped sideways and said to Little Spider without looking back, "Yes, I am Tony Stark. Nice to meet you. Peter Parker, a student at Midtown High School who lives in Queens." What? The little spider almost missed the thread and fell. His mind was racing. Is it really you, Mr. Stark? But what did you say about Peter Parker? With all due respect, you have mistaken the wrong person. I really don't know. I know there is such a person. Tony turned around and said to Peter half jokingly and half threatening, "As a minor, school is where you should stay. I think it is necessary to have a chat with your Aunt May. Maybe she doesn't. It mean there is something wrong with your family's education." The ever-changing battlefield left no time for Peter to talk nonsense. When the Green Goblin on the aircraft saw that all methods had been defeated, he actually turned the aircraft around, dropped a bunch of pumpkin bombs and prepared to escape. "Leave it to you, little Peter." Tony waved his hand mischievously at the little spider. The flight system locked onto the fast-flying Green Goblin in the distance, and accelerated to catch up in an instant. Only Spider-Man, who was full of panic because his identity was called out, was left spraying spider silk, sticking pumpkin bombs one by one and throwing them into the sky. What should I do? What should I do? Adsorbed on the smooth glass exterior wall of Stark Tower, Peter felt that he had encountered a huge problem that he had never experienced in his life. After cooperating with the police and soldiers on the ground to rescue several people who were crushed under boulders and cars, he swayed following the spider silk. He quickly left the messy battle scene. From a distance, he saw Tony in battle armor carrying a man in green armor with his hood removed as he flew back to the top floor of the building. With his keen eyesight, he even saw the man waving goodbye to him. On the second floor that he hadn't noticed, Yuri's golden pupils were flowing with light. Spider-Man, super strength. Spider sense, super coordination, flying over walls. I remember that the reason why the second and third generations of Spider-Man could fly over walls and fly over walls was because they had static electricity. Adsorption capacity. This thing has been used well, it should be more than that. After all, spiders can fly too. Chapter 40. The press conference ended abruptly. A group of reporters and people from all walks of life who were injured by the Green Goblin and then completely cured by Stark's security team took to the streets to tell the world about the magic of the rebirth potion with their own experiences. However, it didn't take long before they were called out by Yuri himself. The ambulance that arrived took him away forcibly for nutritional supplementation. Although the finished rebirth potion contains a high-energy charged nutrient solution, the energy required to regenerate a leg or even half a body is far more than that. He doesn't want these guys whose senses are temporarily blinded by adrenaline to be on the street. He fell to the ground no matter how far away he was, as if he had been injected with a rebirth potion that would leave serious sequelae. After saying goodbye to the Ambrosius couple who had to go home early to prepare, Yuri met Sheriff George, who arrived first and then arrived in the exclusive elevator on the second floor. This is Gwen's father, whom Dr. Lizard once encountered when he was trying to activate the Canary device on top of the Osborne Tower. In fact, this conscientious police chief has been having a lot of headaches recently. The originally chaotic Hell's Kitchen has been experiencing frequent mass deaths of people recently. Although they are all gang members who do not want to spare their lives, there is always an awkward feeling of having to wipe people's butts. It felt like he couldn't catch the figure, and it was even more nonsense to kill him. Apart from going in every morning to clean up the corpses, there was nothing he could do. Maybe, let Spider-Man give it a try. During the night of the Canary device, he saw the true face of the little spider, Peter Parker. Later, the two found time to have a serious talk, and finally reached some agreements that would never be seen in the light. In short, Peter selectively obeys George's orders, and in exchange, the New York police will never embarrass him again. Judging from the situation in recent days, cooperation has achieved good results. George was stunned for a moment after seeing Yuri, but he quickly realized that this was Tony's friend or lawyer. His professionalism made him want to cross-examine him, but when he saw those golden eyes, he couldn't help but want to cross-examine him. After going to bed, this thought slowly subsided again for some unknown reason. Ding dong! Welcome, distinguished Mr. Ambrosius and Sheriff George. As soon as the elevator door opened, he heard Jarvis's polite greeting. Yuri smiled and nodded to the camera as usual, while George's performance seemed like he was about to draw a gun and take aim. After all, he was everywhere but couldn't be found anywhere. The sound of entities is indeed beyond the imagination of people in this era. Following the guide and entering the living room, 3 people were already sitting on the soft sofa. They were, Tony, who had a smile on his face since he had returned from victory and teased the little spider, and Tony, who kept playing with a tube of rebirth potion and playing with it from time to time. A certain military man looked at Mark's armor standing aside, and the mother-in-law Nick, one eye was covered by a black eye patch that was similar to his skin color and kept looking at Yuri, who was walking towards him. Fury. When Yuri got closer, he discovered that there was a green goblin named Norman Osborn lying on the ground with a face full of veins and only the ability to move his eyes. Please take a seat, Mr. Ambrosius. The black braised egg turned into a guest and invited Yuri to sit down in Tony's Stark Tower. He crossed his hands on his chest, looked at Yuri with one eye and said, according to the information we know, Mr. Yuri, I have never experienced a systematic biology education, and I would like to know why you developed the rebirth potion. Is it related to the fact that you turned into golden eyes after working in Iraq during the summer? Hey! The smile on Tony's face disappeared instantly. He straightened up from the sofa, exuding the rare majesty of a superior. That one-eyed one, this is my territory, Yuri is my friend, you have no right to interrogate him here. Yuri chose the largest sofa and sat down. When he passed by the Green Goblin, he squatted down to feel the state of his soul. The Green Goblin, like the Hulk, was a deformed product of the sub-personality suppressing the main personality, especially after some common sense in Yuri. He felt that he should be able to defeat the Hulk effortlessly. Similar to how Guyi slapped out the Hulk's soul, Yuri could also help his master Gabbana subdue the Hulk's secondary personality. His strength is limited to his physical body. In the soul realm, he is truly a younger brother among younger brothers. Okay. The soldier said, the purpose of our gathering here today is to discuss 2 issues, one is the rebirth potion, and the other is your armor, Tony. I don't think it's anything to discuss. Tony crossed his legs and said with a magnanimous face, the rebirth potion is clearly priced and available worldwide. If the military wants to purchase it in large quantities, it can give a discount. As for the armor, I don't have any armor. It is known that I am in a bandit's den in Afghanistan. He was seriously injured, and the thing standing over there is just my mechanical prosthetic limb, which is used to facilitate travel and speed up recovery. The armor, I said I would never make weapons again. The facts will not change because of your quibbles. Black Lloyd's single eye glanced back and forth between Tony and the armor. Believe me, Tony, this is a technology you can't master. If we can't reach an agreement here, you may be targeted by the entire Congress. The truth will not yield to your threats. Tony glanced at Yuri, who was silent on the sidelines, and decided to give his brother a hand and let him into the water. He cleared his throat and said, "In fact, even if I give the armor to you, you can't afford it. First of all, it's the cost. The Mark armor uses a lot of alloys that are unique to me. Their cost per gram may be as high as thousands of dollars, as well as various operating systems, maintenance, and most importantly, the ultra-high computing power artificial intelligence Jarvis who coordinates the entire fuselage. Without him, the entire armor is just a tin can that can resist damage. And Jarvis, there is absolutely no way I can give it to you." Tony displayed a lot of things in a long-winded manner. All kinds of professional technical terms made the marinated egg, the military man and the sheriff frown, but Yuri didn't listen at all. He was fooling anyway, so let Tony repeat it. Maybe even he himself forgot what he just said. In summary, Tony took a sip of wine to soothe his slightly dry throat. The annual cost of a set of mechanical prostheses is about $2,000 billion. What do you think? Are you still interested in getting one? This directly excludes Sheriff George. Seeing that Lu Dan and the soldier fell silent, Tony smiled evilly at Yuri and continued, "But..." Seeing all four people looking at him, he cleared his throat angrily. "In order to escape when I was a hostage in the bandits' den, I actually designed a relatively simple mechanical prosthesis. Because I fled in a panic at the time, its design drawings finally fell into the hands of Ambrosius in front of him. I have to admit that Yuri is really a great genius. After getting the drawings, he relied on his unfinished mechanical knowledge and the great spirit of daring to explore the mysterious field, even in the absence of microreactors, created a new set of energy supply methods. You may have seen it during the surveillance of Canary Night. Yes, it is the mechanical prosthetic limb that far surpasses me in all aspects of performance. It is a powerful, domineering, mysterious and extraordinary combination of scrap metal and scrap metal, the steam armor." Yuri stiffly swallowed the drink in his mouth under everyone's gaze, and cursed Tony's 18th generation of ancestors in his heart. Although throwing the steam armor out to take the blame was something that had been discussed long ago, you should at least tell him in advance. Let me say it. Putting down the wine glass, he looked at the ripples in the glass and said, "Tony is basically right. The steam armor is priced at $9,999 million per set. Do you want to try one?" End of this chapter. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.